All right. So, welcome everybody. So, today we are going to be discussing the Temple of Onias. And we're going to, here at the beginning, just kind of briefly go over the laws and commands of the Torah and how they are not done away with and still apply to us today. Because it seems there are many out there who think, the Torah is, not to be followed. Don't worry about it. So, yeah, we're just going to cover that just briefly. So, yeah, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Give me one moment, and then we'll start with the prayer. All right. So, Father Abba Yahuah, we come to you in prayer to ask for your blessings and your guidance. And please help to lead us onto that narrow path and help to follow you and your ways. And I wanted to thank you for your Sabbath day and this amazing fellowship that you've allowed us to have. We all need each other, and we all have a piece of that puzzle. And please just be there to help to continue to guide us. And I wanted to pray for all those who are sick or struggling through trials and tribulations. We all need your help, and we need your strength to endure to the end. And I pray to you in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. Let it be so. All right, so let's get right into it here. And hopefully when others join, I know Sarah was wanting, or she had invited Lachlan, sorry, into our fellowship here to go over the calendar, but he's in Australia, so it's still very early for them there. So maybe we can go over the calendar a bit later if they end up joining. But here, really quickly, I wanted to cover the laws of Yahuah. How they're not abolished, they're not done away with. They still apply to us today. And this is yahuahandthetorah.net. And I shared the link there in our chat. But this is also, Yah's scriptures. It's what we use, or what I use for my readings all the time. Or any scriptures, things like that. So it's the laws of Yahuah. Simplified, meaning it's just showing the verses and not, or the book and verse number and not the verse itself. If you click on the full version, it's going to show you the entire verse. So really quickly, I just wanted to go over this. So it's very important. And Callan, I want you to listen too. My son. So, all right. So, commandment number 1. So they put, the Boss family put these in order as they can be found in scriptures. So that's how they numbered them, as according to the order they are found in scriptures. So these are going to be the 10 commandments, which are the chapter headings for all of these laws that will fall under them. So, be fruitful, found in Genesis 1:28 and 35:11. Multiply, Genesis 1:28 and 35:11. Also in Deuteronomy 8:1 and 30:16. Replenish the earth, Genesis 1:28. Subdue it, have dominion over the fish, fowl, and every living creature. Again, Genesis 1:28. The herb-bearing and every tree is for food. Genesis 1:29. Man and woman should build their own families. Genesis 2:24. So again, I would like people to, think about these, and, if you think any of these are done away with or abolished or no longer to be observed, then that has to be found somewhere else in scriptures. Nowhere else in scriptures are you going to find any of this is done away with or abolished. None of these are too hard to observe. So, master sin, meaning die to flesh. Genesis 4:7. Every clean, moving thing that lives shall be food for you. Genesis 9:3. Do not eat the blood. Genesis 9:4. Leviticus. All of these verses. Leviticus, Deuteronomy. Walk before me and be perfect. Genesis, Deuteronomy. All these verses. Guard Yahuah's covenant, laws, statutes, and commandments. Everything we're speaking about right here is a commandment to guard all of these things themselves. Found in Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Look at how many places this is found, how many verses in Deuteronomy that it's commanded to do what? His covenant, laws, statutes, and commands. Everything we're going to speak about here in this list. All these verses. Every male shall be circumcised at 8 days old. Teach your children the commands and guard the way of Yahuah. Again, teaching our children the commands and guarding his ways. Genesis, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. Many verses to back up the plethora of verses that say the same thing that we just read. Remember Yahuah's name for all generation. So it doesn't say remember the title God. It doesn't say remember the title Lord. His name is Yahuah, and he needs us and wants us to use his name. We don't bring his name to naught. Keep the Passover. It's a commandment in Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Keeping the Passover, a festival, not done away with, a commandment to keep it. And then keep the festival of unleavened bread. Exodus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. It's a commandment to keep these. There is one Torah for the stranger and the Hebrew. Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers. Sanctify all the firstborn to Yahuah. Exodus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. There are no mighty ones before Yahuah, no other lowercase gods. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. You shall not make graven images. All found in Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. So, which ones of these are too tough to follow? None of them so far. Do not bring Yahuah's name to naught, meaning don't use titles. Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. Keep the Sabbath. So, keep the Sabbath. This is very important. Look how many verses there are about keeping the Sabbath. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Very important. And these are just what's in the Torah. Honor your parents. Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. Do not kill. Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. Do not break wedlock. Another important one. Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. And if you're watching this later, feel free to pause and, check all these verses yourselves, or check the website, YahuahAndTheTorah.net. YHWH, and the Torah, all one word, .net. Do not steal. Do not make false accusations against your neighbor. Do not covet anything of your neighbor's. Do not make an altar from rock that a tool has touched. Do not go up to the altar by the steps. If a man steals cattle, he shall restore it 5 times. Yahuah's Torah for criminals. Do not lie with beasts. No sacrifices to other Elohim. Do not oppress the stranger, fatherless, or widow. We see Judaism breaking this commandment constantly. Do not charge your brother interest. If you borrow your neighbor's raiment, turn it back to him before sunset. Do not curse the ruler of your people. Do not eat what is torn of beast.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Hey, Shabbat Shalom. Just going over the commands real quick. Do not follow a multitude of evil. Do not judge unrighteously against the poor. Bring back your enemy's cattle if you find it going astray. Help the animals of your enemy. Stay away from rumors and gossipers. Take no bribes. Do not oppress the stranger. Love the stranger. Give your land rest in the 7th year. Do not mention any pagan names. Keep the feasts of Yahuah. See, all the festivals, keep them. Do not cook your goat in its mother's milk. Obey the messenger or the angels Yahuah sends before you. Do not bow down to other gods. Serve Yahuah. Make no covenant with other Elohim, outsiders of the land. So don't be making covenants with others. Do not make or use this anointing oil on another person. Do not make or use this perfume on another person or a normal person. Do not eat the fat. Do what you say you're going to do. Return what is your neighbor's. Obey Yahuah's dietary laws. Women's time of separation. Obey Yahuah's hygiene or Torah. Obey Yahuah's Torah laws. Yes, I shared the link right above there, brother. Right above Sarah's comment. Keep the Day of Atonement, Yom HaKippurim. Do not uncover the nakedness of your family. Do not take your woman's sister for wife. So don't take your woman's or your wife's sister for a wife. Do not lie with a woman in her uncleanness. You shall not sacrifice your children to Molech. Do not be a sodomite. Be Kodesh. Do not reap the corners of your field, or you shall not glean your vineyard. Do not deal falsely or defraud your neighbor. Do not lie or be a liar. Pay your workers for the day's wage they are due. Do not harm the disabled. Do not endanger your neighbor. Do not hate your brother. Rebuke your neighbor for his sin. Love your neighbor as yourself. Do not diverse your cattle. Do not mingle your seed. Do not mingle linen and wool. Do not lie with a taken woman. Do not eat the fruit of the trees for 3 years. Do not practice sorcery. Do not round your beard or the corners of your beard. Do not cut yourself for the dead. Do not get tattoos. Do not prostitute your daughter. Do not defile your temple. Do not consult a medium. Respect your elders. Have correct weights and measures. Do not walk in the manners of the nations. Keep the feast of first fruits. Keep the feast of trumpets. Keep the feast of Sukkot. Again, commands to keep the festivals. Just like the laws, they're not done away with, not abolished, not for us not to observe today. We are supposed to be observing these. They're a mark, a sign of his people. So if you blaspheme the name of Yahuah, you shall be put to death. If you kill your neighbor's animal, you must give him another. Repay injury for injury. Honor the Jubilee year. Confess your sins to Yahuah and repay who you have trespassed against. The Torah of being a Nazarene or a Nazarite. Wear tzitzit on the four corners of your garments. The laws of whoever touches a dead corpse. Follow Yahuwah's Torah of inheritance. Torah of keeping your oath to Yahuah. Do not add or take away from the word. Guard your soul. Learn to fear Yahuah. You shall love Yahuah with all your heart. Bind the laws upon your hand and the frontlets between your eyes. Write the Torah on your doorposts. Do not tempt Yahuah. Do what is right and good in the sight of Yahuah. Do not be afraid of your enemies. Remember Yahuah. We're almost done here, guys. Circumcise your heart. Cleave to Yahuah. Swear by his name. Destroy graven images. Do not make an idol of Yahuah as the pagans do to their Elohim. Rejoice in all Yahuah has blessed you with. Do not do what is right in your own eyes. Do not hearken to the words of false prophets. Do not make any baldness between your eyes for the dead. You shall not eat any abominable thing. You shall give to a stranger of clean food that dies of itself, but you shall not eat of it. Give tithe of your increase of seed year by year. The Torah of the end of the 7-year release. Do not borrow from the nations. So this is the end of the year of release. You know, if someone's indebted to you, and they still haven't paid you, you let it go. Do not borrow from the nations. Do not harden your heart or shut down your hand from the poor. Guard month 1 of Yahuwah's calendar. It's a command to keep the calendar. Deuteronomy 16:1, 3, 4, 7 through 8. So basically, Deuteronomy 16:1 through 8 is about guarding the first month, keeping the calendar. 3 times a year, all males shall appear before Yahuah. You shall make judges and officers in all your gates. Do not plant Asherah poles near the altar. And you see these things all over the place, the obelisks. So there must be 2 or 3 witnesses. Hearken unto the prophet Yahuwah has chosen. The prophet tests of Deuteronomy. So Deuteronomy 13 and Deuteronomy 18, 20 through 22. I should let them know Deuteronomy 13 as well. Do not remove your neighbor's property line. How to deal with a false witness among Torah keepers. The first child is to get double portions. If your brother's cattle or clothes are lost and you find them, you must return them. A woman should not wear what pertains to a man, nor a man wear what pertains to a woman. If you find a bird's nest with the mother and the babies, or eggs, take the babies, but not the mother. If you build a new house with a flat roof that is able to be lived on, you must put a railing around it. So a parapet wall is what that's called. Do not be a prostitute. Do not use dirty money. The law of divorce. Do not take a person's millstone for a pledge. If you lend to your brother, do not enter his house to get your payment. He must bring it to you. Return his clothing before sunset if that was his pledge. Do not oppress a hired servant that is poor and needy. Every man shall be put to death for his own sin. Do not go back for the forgotten sheaf in the field. Leave it for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. Do not muzzle your ox when he treads out the grain. If your brother dies and has no child, you shall take his wife and name the firstborn after your brother. So this commandment right here is one of the only commands that would allow for more than one wife. A lot of people misunderstand that. Polygamy is not for today. It was allowed only in certain situations for Yahuah's will to be done. And people try to twist things out of context to fulfill their, lustful fantasies of having more than one wife. That's a whole nother subject though. So I think this is the last one, yeah. So at the end of 7 years, you are to read the Torah at the Feast of Sukkot. Boom. Interesting. So I would like to ask, which one of these laws and festivals, these laws have been abolished or done away with or are no longer applicable today? The answer is none. They're all still applicable. Sorry, I can't say that word. Applicable today. Hey, and Shabbat Shalom, everybody just joining. Glad you all can make it. All right, so does anybody have any questions about the laws, statutes, or commands? I'm sure probably everybody here realizes, we follow them. So all right, so let's get into the part where I'm sure everybody is excited because we didn't get into it last week. But the Temple of Onias. So if you don't know, in our other group, we have a whole tab about the Temple of Onias. And there's a lot of links and videos, and I even speak about it in my article here, which we're going to read through. And then there's, 1, 2, 3 videos that are probably equal about 30 minutes in total altogether that we're going to watch about the subject as well. And then, we'll go in, answer any questions anybody has or continue our fellowship, all the good stuff. But yeah, that last law there actually was fairly interesting. So at the end of the Jubilee, basically, is when we read the whole Torah at the Feast of Sukkot. So we learn something new every day, huh? You know how many times I've read that list and didn't even realize it said that on the bottom? Oh my.
Yeah, anyone's welcome to chime in and put your mute on, talk about anything they want to talk about. Feel free. I'd love to have this more as a discussion than anything. So if anyone, wanted to say anything, please feel free, jump in.
Yes, exactly. So we are here to help answer questions as well. And there's a lot of us here who can also help answer questions in the chat. So, feel free to ask questions. And the only stupid question is the one that's not asked. So there is no such thing as stupid questions.
Or, if you have like your own study on a certain thing, share it. This is, a group led. I want this to eventually be a group led type of meeting and gathering. So, yeah, please just chime in.
Yeah. So, no, yeah, Faith, yeah, we're actually going to talk about the priesthood here. And there are some videos, and we've discussed it before, how Messiah is from the line of Aaron and David. Really fascinating stuff. But it really ties in with all of this that we're going to go over right now about the Temple of Onias, who Onias is. And Onias is actually the Greek translation of Yochanan. So Yochanan transliterated is Onias in Greek. Really fascinating stuff. So this is going to be in my article here, what we're about to read, and it's in chapter 3. Let me just share the link. And if you're watching on YouTube, the link is, of course, going to be in the description. So this is starting about a few paragraphs down in chapter 3 of my article, but this is going to go over Onias and the Temple of Onias. And it's really amazing and fascinating, and it's really the fulfillment of Isaiah 20, and we're going to get into that as well. So I want you to log in. Oh, oops, that's the wrong link. That's right. Sorry. Yeah, because that's my that's how I get into it here. Let me share the proper one. Sorry. I was wondering why it didn't show up there. All right, here we go. All right, so there's the proper link. Oh my, well, we are praying for you, Sister Sumi. She left in an ambulance last night, and if we had a temple, I'd be outside the camp. Yeah, no worries, sister. I'm glad everything's okay. We're praying for you. All right, awesome. Yeah, it's very important to be set apart. Okay, so we got the link in there. This is about a little bit ways down in chapter 3. So, again, this is going to be about Onias and the Temple of Onias. So the Tanakh, or Old Testament Hebrew Bible, states that Zadok was a patrilineal descendant of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the high priest. The lineage of Zadok is presented in the genealogy of Ezra as his descendant, as being of 9th generation of direct patrilineal descent from Phinehas, the son of Eleazar. So we have Ezra 7, verses 1 through 5 here. And after these events, in the reign of Ashtasharsha, or Artaxerxes, sovereign of Paras, or Persia, Ezra, son of Sariah, son of Azariah, son of Hilkiah, son of Shalom, son of Zadok, son of it's a difficult one, Ahitub, son of Amariah, son of Azariah, son of Marioth, son of Zariah, son of Uzi, son of Buki, son of Ashbishua, son of Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, the chief Kohen. I probably butchered a few of those names. Apologies. So he aided King David during the revolt of his son Absalom, and was subsequently instrumental in bringing Solomon to the throne and officiated at Solomon's coronation. After Solomon's building of the first temple in Jerusalem, Zadok was the first high priest to serve there. The prophet Ezekiel extols the sons of Zadok as staunch opponents of paganism during the era of pagan worship, and indicates their birthright to unique duties and privileges in the future temple. Historical data shows that the high priesthood remained in the progeny of the Zadokites from the time of Zadok up until the rise of the Hasmoneans in about 167 BCE. The descendants of Zadok increased in rank and influence, so that his son Azariah was one of the princes of Solomon. And we'll find that in 1 Kings 4, verses 1 through 2. And it came to be that the sovereign Shalom was sovereign over all of Israel. And these were his chief officials, Azariah, son of Zadok, the Kohen. So Ahimaaz, who married a daughter of Solomon, was probably another of Zadok's sons. In 1 Kings 4:15, we can find that. Either Zadok himself or his grandson was the ruler of the Aaronite priests. 1 Chronicles 27:16 through 17. And over the tribes of Israel, the chief officer over Reuben, Eleazar, son of Zikri, over Shimeon, Sepetyahu, son of Makkah, Levi, Hashabiah, son of Kemuel, over Aaron, Zadok. So also Jerusha, the mother of Jotham, is apparently termed the daughter of Zadok to emphasize her noble lineage, since her father may have been a descendant of the first Zadok, and this can be found in 2 Kings 15:33 and 2 Chronicles 27:1. The house of Zadok occupied the high priesthood throughout much of the Second Temple period, from Jehoshua ben Jehozadak after the exile, down to Simeon II, or Simeon the Just, who is much praised in Ben Sirach or Ecclesiasticus, chapter 50, verses 1 through 4. So this is Simeon ben Zadok, is actually what he's called in Hebrew. So Shimeon, the Kohen Hagadol, the high priest, the son of Onias, who in his life repaired the house again, and in his days fortified the Hayakal, the temple, and by him the double height from the foundation was built, the high fortress of the wall around the Hayakal, in his days, the cistern to receive the water, being surrounded as a sea, was covered with plates of bronze. He looked after the Hayakal, that it should not fall, and fortified the city against the siege. So this here is going to be, it should be in Ecclesiasticus, and it is in some translations, but it's not in all translations. So it's going to be these additional verses that we see, and it's located between verses 12 and 13 here in chapter 50. So give thanks to him who makes a horn to sprout for the house of David, for his kindness endures forever. Give thanks to him who has chosen the sons of Zadok to be priests, for his kindness endures forever. So his eldest son, Onias III, and his usurping second son, Jason, who introduced the program of Hellenization, from which the Sadducees stem from the line of Jason, and that they eventually led to the Maccabean revolt, the usurpers. There is no information about the following century and a half. After this, the book of Maccabees makes it possible to trace the line from Onias in the middle of the 3rd century BCE to Simeon the Just, so Shimeon ben Zadok, and to Onias III, who held the office of high priest when Antiochus Epiphanes succeeded to the throne, circa 175 BCE. His son, Onias IV, which we're going to, he is who built the temple and got the land in Egypt, the land of Onias, the temple of Onias. This is him right here. He was too young to succeed to his father's office, to which Jason, the usurper, which, as we can see, the book of Maccabees even admits to. So this is going to be found in 2 Maccabees, chapter 4, verses 7 and 20. And Menelaus, again, 2 Maccabees 4, 23 through 26. Although not a priest, why? Because he was the second-born. They were successfully appointed by bribing the Seleucid ruler to appoint them. Exactly. That's because they were forced to observe the Seleucid calendar, which was literally the Babylon calendar. And they were forcing the priests to follow it or die. This is where Onias' father was killed. Onias IV, his father, was killed. And we'll get into that here in just a moment, though. So after the death of Alchemist in 159 BCE, the office remained vacant for 7 years. Interesting. This is found in Maccabees 9, 54 through 57. So again, I'm not condoning or saying Maccabees is scriptures, but they do admit to the truth here. So until the Maccabean Jonathan was nominated high priest by Alexander Ballas, he was the Hasmonean, the usurper, not of legitimate high priesthood. And as you can see, he was nominated by the Greeks. But in the early years of Simeon, Jonathan's successor, was the high priesthood irrevocably, apologies, I can't really speak today. So it was the high priesthood irrevocably transferred from the Zadokites to the Hasmoneans. This seems to have given the appropriate occasion for the origins of the Dead Sea sect, and a sect in Egypt as well, as Onias IV had fled there after the usurpation and the death of his father. The sects most likely originated with groups of Zadok priests deeply disturbed by the prevalent trends, especially in the usurped high priesthood by the Hasmoneans. There is also much evidence that the Zadok priesthood through Onias IV went to Egypt as well, and even set up a temple to Yahuah. So Isaiah 19, apologies, I said 20 earlier, it's Isaiah 19. So Isaiah chapter 19, verses 16 through 25. So, excuse me. In that day, Mitzrayim, or Egypt, shall become like women, and tremble and fear because of the waving of the hand of Yahuah of hosts, which he waves over it. And the land of Yehudah shall be a fear to Mitzrayim. Everyone who mentions it fears for himself, because the counsel of Yahuah of hosts, which he has counseled against it. So check this out. In that day 5 cities in the land of Mitzrayim shall speak the language of Canaan, and swear by Yahuah of hosts. So this is verse 18. One of them will be called the city of Azadek. And this is how the Brenton Septuagint reads. In that day an altar to Yahuah shall be in the midst of the land of Mitzrayim, and a standing column to Yahuah at its border. And it shall be a sign. It shall be for a sign and for a witness to Yahuah of hosts in the land of Mitzrayim, when they cry to Yahuah because of the oppressors. He sends them a Savior and an Elohim, and he shall deliver them. And Yahuah shall be known to Mitzrayim, and the Mitzrayites shall know Yahuah in that day, and make slaughtering and meal offering, and shall make a vow to Yahuah and pay it. And Yahuah shall smite Mitzrayim, smite it and heal it. And they shall turn to Yahuah, and he shall hear them and heal them. In that day there shall be a highway from Mitzrayim to Ashur, and Ashur shall come into Mitzrayim, and Mitzrayim into Ashur, or Assyria. And Mitzrayim shall serve with Ashur. In that day Yisrael shall be one of 3 with Mitzrayim and Ashur, even a barakah, blessing in the midst of the earth, whom Yahuah of hosts shall bless, Baruch, saying, Baruch is Mitzrayim, my people, and Ashur, the work of my hands, and Israel, my inheritance. So this is pretty mind-blowing here. Not only is it talking about, Egypt turning and following Yahuah, but he sends them a Savior. So what happened at the time of Messiah when he was still a child? His family and him fled to Egypt to flee Herod. Where did they go to Egypt? Right here. Just remember that. And this is also a fulfillment of Isaiah 19. And then we see, Egypt, Assyria, and Israel being part of this threefold covenant with Yahuah. Truly prophetic and amazing. So Isaiah 19, 18 through 22 gives prophetic confirmation of the temple of Onias in Egypt. We are given 3 different names for the main city in the land of Onias. All 3 names add to the narrative. The Septuagint calls it the city of Azadek or Zedek, depending on the translation. And Zedek is Zadok. So Isaiah 19, Lexham Septuagint, on that day there will be 5 cities in Egypt that speak the Canaanite language and swear by the name of Yahuah. One city will be called the city of Zedek. So a few translations call it the city of the sun, or Heliopolis. The New Living Translation gives the name Heliopolis, which means city of the sun. And the King James calls it the city of destruction. Yeah, you know why they call it that? So I suspect that the translators of the King James were trying to obscure what that place was, a Zadok community. Azadek means righteousness. You know what else means righteousness? Zadok. I believe that the name Heliopolis is also a clue. The city probably already had its name before Onias IV arrived, but the sun is the greater light that rules the Zadok calendar, and this is where most of the sons of light move to. So in the book Ages in Chaos, we're going to see, basically, it documents an additional 600 years. So this is actually, Sister Ellie pointed this out in her article. So the reason I'm pointing it out here is because this is going to show Egypt followed a solar-only calendar at this time that Onias IV went there, and we're going to get more into that. This also goes with that video, and we went over it as well, is were the pyramids built before or after the flood? So this goes exactly with that, because of that 600 years added to Egyptian history because of the confusion regarding the rulers' co-regencies. So this indicates that the first recorded solar-only calendar in history was attributed to Egypt and thought to have begun around 1200 BC, but it didn't actually begin until after 700 BC, which would be the same time Onias went to Egypt and befriended Ptolemy, which is more proof of history in the calendar. So here's a map here. So two different ones that we have. Let's see if I can get it to scroll up. But so here we're going to see, this is the kingdom of Ptolemy back then, just represented in Egypt. And you can see Pelusium here. And then, like we were speaking about, Pelusian between Leontopolis and Heliopolis. Here's the city of Onias, the city of Azadek, city of Zadok. So I want everyone to notice where Heliopolis is. So Heliopolis right here, and Leontopolis. And Leontopolis in Ptolemaic Egypt, between Memphis and Pelusium. The land given to Onias IV was a strategic point from a military standpoint. Yeah, Heliopolis, Cairo. Yeah, look at that. Boom. Thanks for sharing that, Ken. So his ally Ptolemy made him a leader in his army for two reasons. Israelites were excellent military strategists, and they had a common enemy who was Antiochus IV. I would also like to point out that the legend of how the Septuagint was translated into Greek was because Ptolemy wanted to read the scriptures. Here we have one of the sons of Zadok, Onias IV, in Egypt, with friend and ally Ptolemy. And in fact, over 80% of all quotations in the New Testament resemble what we can find in the Greek Septuagint. So this is going to be from G. Archer and G.C. Chiranchingo, Old Testament quotations in the New Testament. So of the places where the New Testament quotes the Old, the great majority is from the Septuagint version. Protestant authors, Archer and Chiranchingo, list 340 places where the New Testament cites the Septuagint, but only 33 places where it cites from the Masoretic text, rather than the Septuagint. Interesting number, huh? Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing those pictures, Ken. Yeah. So they also found older Hebrew and Aramaic manuscripts that resemble the Greek Septuagint in the Dead Sea Scrolls in Cave 7. This has led to many experts agreeing that the Hebrew manuscripts that the apostles used actually did resemble the Septuagint, and that they didn't simply just quote it, they were using it. It has also gave questions to the credibility of those Hebrew Masoretic manuscripts that we use today, which, the King Jimmy and all that is mainly translated from. Here is a statement from Professor Horn proving this point. However, the facts that a ununified Hebrew text suddenly became the standard at the end of the 1st century, and that not one copy of a divergent text survived, except the Dead Sea Scrolls that had already been hidden when Jamnia convened. So this is what talking about Rabbi Akiba, which I do go into and cover more in my article. That's actually going to be in Proving Enoch and Jubilees, where I get deeper into Rabbi Akiba and the Council of Jamnia. So continuing, not one copy of divergent text survived, indicating clearly that the Council of Jamnia must have taken action in this matter. Moreover, the fact that Aquila, one of Akiba's pupils, soon thereafter produced a new Greek translation that is slavishly translated to the new unified Hebrew text for the use of the diaspora Jews gives credence to the idea that Akiba must have been a key influence in the standardization of the Hebrew text. So this is Professor S.H. Horn, Archaeology, Andrews University in Michigan. But I am far from putting the reliance in your teachers, the Jews, who refuse to admit that the interpretation made by the 70 elders who were with Ptolemy, the king of the Egyptians, is a correct one. The Greek Septuagint is what they're speaking of. And they attempt to frame another. And I wish you to observe that they have altogether taken away many scriptures from the translations affected by those 70 elders who were with Ptolemy, and by which this very man who was crucified is proved to have been set forth expressively as Elohim and man, and as being crucified and as dying. So this is Justin Martyr, quote from him. But we can see, even he admits to, look, they changed the wording, and Akiba was involved in all of that. So here's where we get into the Temple of Onias, the second temple in Egypt. So the evidence for the Zadokite temple of Onias IV was the son of Onias III, and the heir of the Zadokite line of high priests of Israel. He built a new temple at Leontopolis in Ptolemaic Egypt, where he reigned as a rival high priest to the usurped hierarchy in Jerusalem. While he never gained leadership in Judea, he still held influence in Egypt. The territory was most heavily populated by Israelites. It was called the Land of Onias, in reference to his influence. Onias' father, Onias III, served as high priest from 187 to 175 BCE. The high priest was also a governmental position, albeit one that kings did not usually interfere with after appointment. However, in 175 BCE, Onias III was dismissed from the high priesthood, and his brother Jason was given the role instead. This is where the Sadducees, Pharisees, all them stem from. So why was he given the role? Because he bribed the Seleucid ruler to appoint him. And as mentioned previously, Onias III, the Zadok high priest, who was usurped by his brother Jason, who replaced the calendar, and who the Sadducees stem from in Messiah's time. Onias IV left the country of Judea to go to Egypt and build his own temple in Heliopolis after the usurpation and the death of his father. So again, Isaiah 19, 18 through 22 is what we just read above. That is the example of one of the sons of Zadok, who is called a pious man. The scriptures give us many good role models, and the sons of Zadok are most definitely a good example. So Onias III fled to the Seleucid capital Antioch, perhaps hoping to petition King Antiochus IV to restore him. That's where he was killed by his enemies while attempting to claim sanctuary at the shrine to Apollo and Artemis. In 152 BCE, the usurping Hasmonean Jonathan Aphus made a deal with the Seleucid royal claimant Alexander Ballas, where Jonathan was appointed as high priest. As Ballas went on to win the ongoing Seleucid civil war, this appointment stuck. Onias IV was not invited back to Judea to take his family line's position, and Onias's personal expectation of the usurping Hasmoneans darkened. With the permission of Ptolemy, Onias IV arranged the construction of a temple at Leontopolis. It might have happened around 145 BCE. Though comparatively small, the new temple was modeled on that of the Second Temple at Jerusalem, and was called by the name of its founder as the Temple of Onias. Onias IV possibly expected that after the upheavals in Jerusalem by the Syrians and the Maccabees, the Egyptian temple would be regarded as the new legitimate one, as according to Isaiah 19. However, the Hasmonean usurpers largely succeeded in maintaining autonomy, and this did not happen. The temple in Jerusalem was protected, and a usurped high priesthood began to pass down the Hasmonean line, not the true Zadokite line. Onias IV, who enjoyed the favor of the Egyptian court, did succeed in elevating the Egyptian belief of Yahuah to a position of dignity and importance. See, this is also the fulfillment of Isaiah 19, because all of Egypt started following Yahuah at this time. So a large number of able-bodied Israelites and other Zadok priests had accompanied Onias IV into Egypt, and these strangers, who were there called inhabitants, received, on condition of performing military service and preserving the internal peace of the country, they received tracts of land of their own, on which they lived with their families. The district inhabited by them lay between Memphis and Pelusium, and was long called the land of Onias. This proves what Isaiah 19 was prophesying, and in my opinion, from my research, Messiah must have visited both Zadokite communities, as him and his family fled to Egypt to avoid King Herod as a child, which can be found in Matthew 2, verses 12 through 14. And Yahusha even learning as a child the true calendar and the way of his father Yahuah from the true priesthood, the Zadokites, which is also why Messiah observed Passover a different day than the Pharisees, the day before, which also lines up with the Zadok calendar, and how he was so learned at a very young age. He was also baptized by John the Immerser, or John the Baptist, near the Qumran community, who was of the line of Aaron. And then, it just goes into more about the sons of Zadok at the Qumran community, but that was the bulk of what I have for the Temple of Onias in my article. But I do want to go over these 3 videos here. But first, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. And while we do that, I'm going to share this video link in our group here. And awesome. Thank you for sharing those, Ken. Feel free to put those or forward them into the Little Season tab in our other group as well. And yeah, if anybody has anything they would like to add or, any thoughts or, feel free.
Hi, so can I ask a question?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, so this is all extremely enlightening and definitely something I'm going to have to go over multiple times. Kind of just from my understanding on what Yahuah requires, how were they able to set up in such a pagan place? Like I know the Mithrites did come in and join to do the service, but did they have to not was this kind of not, I won't say mixed worship, with the Mithrites offering and all of the things of their pagan deities, I'm just curious on how that would have worked. Did they tear it down? Or were they kind of in Goshen, were they separate from them a little bit? So yeah, I'm just curious on that side of it. Because I know it wasn't mixed worship and it was kept so set apart. I'm just curious, how were they able to do it in a place that initially did not serve Yahuah?
So yeah, no, that's a very good question. And, all throughout scriptures, we see, Egypt is actually, kind of important. And, it's where Israel was let out of. But at this time, I believe when they went back, all the pagan idols and the pagan temples were basically demolished, gotten rid of. And that's where, Onias comes in and he starts setting up the temple to Yahuah right there in Egypt. And that actually caused a snowball effect to the rest of Egypt and Ptolemy himself. So that's how, they started following, the solar Zadok calendar. They started following the Torah of Yahuah. And it goes with what Messiah says as well. If you turn from sin and you repent and you follow Yahuah, he'll accept you in. So even the Egyptians, with their thousands of years of history of worshiping idols and pagan gods, they turn from it, they can immediately follow Yahuah. And really that's the whole foundation of all of scriptures, return to Yahuah, repent from sin. And it's not just Israel, because when we do that, we actually become grafted into Israel. So we become part of Israel. And then when we read in Isaiah 19 there, we see that there's actually, there's Egypt, Assyria, and Israel all together in a threefold covenant with Yahuah, basically. I don't have a lot of verification because, they try to hide a lot of this throughout history. But that temple, it was destroyed. There's not really much left of it. And the videos we're going to watch will kind of go into that more as well. But the thing is they record this actually in their own Talmud and things like that. They even call these legitimate temples in the Talmud, which is, really interesting because they are the usurpers. And it really just shows how they tamper and they play with our history, all to hide the truth of Yahuah. I hope that helps to answer your question.
Yeah, no, it does. It helps me also kind of go back with Noah, and you see Yahuah told him to command all of his sons, and that he did, but not all of them walked in that. But out of Noah comes from all of the nations that we see here today, that it was still open to them all, but we see where the line, like the lineage comes from for those who were obedient, but it was still to the other nations. So I absolutely see that from that aspect, even taking it back there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Good question. Thank you. And Shabbat Shalom, Micah, in Pacey House. Yeah, excellent question. Thank you. All right, so real quick, let me make sure the audio is on for this. But this first video here is going to be about 5 minutes or so. The next one's like 13 minutes, and the one after that's like 18 minutes. But it's all going to go into more detail about this, the Temple of Onias, and some of the lost history, and even make mentions of, how the usurpers themselves keep track of these things. Hey, Miranda, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, guys.
Glad you can make it. Pray you're enjoying your vacation.
Yes, just got off the hot beach so I could hear you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, no, perfect timing. So we're about to watch some of the videos on the Temple of Onias. We did go over it in my article a bit, but I'm sure these videos will make it easy to catch up. So,
Awesome. Can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. Glad you can make it. So this first video is linked right there in our chat if you would like to watch later. And let me go ahead and mute my mic, and then we'll go ahead and get right into it.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another Christian Reader 777 YouTube video. Many of you know of the iconic temple in Jerusalem that has fascinated the world, the temple where God dwelt. But few know that there were a plethora of other Yahweh temples with more legitimate priesthoods and greater ritual purity. This is a scandal like none other. The temple in Jerusalem was one of 5 simultaneously existing Yahwist temples. So just what were these temples, and how did they come to be? Let's start with the temple in Elephantine. Our records indicate that it was destroyed, then rebuilt under Persian rulership. Our main source on this topic is preserved in correspondence between the leaders at Elephantine and Jerusalem and Samaria regarding the rebuilding of the temple at Elephantine. The Jews in Elephantine, according to their letters, performed burnt offerings, meal offerings, and burned incense to God Most High, who they call Yahuah, which is the name they seem to use for Yahweh. Oddly enough, the Jews in Elephantine respected the authority of both the Jews in Jerusalem and the Samaritan authorities, both of which authorized them to continue sacrifices and the burning of incense after the rebuilding of their Elephantine-based temple. This temple came to be as a result of an Israelitish military colony. It was abandoned in the 4th century, according to some scholars, after an outbreak of anti-Semitism among local Gentiles. Next is the Temple of Onias, just upstream from the Yahweh's Temple of Elephantine. It was founded by a priest, a high priest of all things, who was ousted from his office by ungodly Hellenistic forces who were not of Aaronic descent. They put in a priest who was not of Aaronic descent, named Alchemist. As a descendant of Aaron, Onias had the right to perform the sacrifices. He was a legitimate priest. His temple, on the other hand, was a political stunt and an attempt to preserve his authority, according to Josephus. Josephus remarks that he found Jews, priests, and Levites all available to help him run the temple. Shockingly, some rabbinic sources take a positive or neutral stance of the priesthood of Onias, asserting that those of his priesthood maintained amicability with the Jerusalem priesthood and were even allowed to eat the food offered on the altar in Jerusalem. This only deepens the shock. A more legitimate priesthood than that of the Jerusalem temple ran the temple of Onias in Egypt for years. Wow. According to Josephus, the temple of Onias was destroyed after the local Jews took in a few hundred Sicarii, who had just come from Masada, about 73 CE. The Sicarii, being as trouble-causing as they were, caused a wave of persecution against themselves and other Jewish philosophies in Egypt, leading to the destruction of the temple of Onias. The next temple is that of the Samaritans. Their temple on Mount Gerizim was rebuilt and destroyed multiple times throughout the centuries. Of all the non-Jerusalem Yahwist, Yahweh-worshipping temples from the Second Temple period, this is the only one where sacrifices are still performed today. The Samaritans, while Yahwist didn't claim it, are noted in the Hebrew Bible as being imported pagans. The text states, the king of Assyria brought people from Babylon, Cutha, Ava, Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, ancient nations of the Middle East, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. These people did not fear the Lord at the beginning of their dwelling there. Therefore, the Lord sent lions among them. There's a slight problem with that. The lions started killing people. To remedy the lions killing people, the king of Assyria commanded, saying, send one of the priests you brought from there. Let him go and dwell there, and let him teach them the rituals of the God of the land. Then one of the priests they had carried away from Samaria came and dwelt at Bethel, and taught them how they should fear the Lord. However, every nation continued to make gods of its own, and put them in the shrines on the high places, which the Samaritans had made. Skipping down a few verses, they feared the Lord, yet served their own gods. Furthermore, the fact that they appointed priests from every class, or, in other words, they made anyone a priest no matter what their background, completely delegitimized their priesthood. So this temple kind of counts as Yahwist, although it's not Israelitish. The fourth and final temple I will talk about today is the temple complex at Qumran. While Josephus attests to the fact that the Essenes did respect Jerusalem in some matters, they also, according to some archaeologists, had an incense altar at Qumran, as well as bone piles that may indicate sacrifices, although experts are divided on the exact nature of the religious rituals performed at Qumran. We do know, however, that they had high-use ritual baths for purification and ritual washing. Archaeologists claim Qumran was abandoned after its destruction in 69 CE. Very little can be said with certainty about the Qumran temple, except what archaeology tells us, coupled with ancient writers, which is to say we can't be certain of the extent of this temple's use, nor its interaction with Jerusalem and its temple. Hi, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed my latest video on the forgotten temples of the Second Temple period Yahwism.
All right. So, real quick, I wanted to kind of show you this comment here. Oh, sorry, I shortened the window. Where's that comment? Oh, right here. This guy's got it right here. So not only was Onias IV a descendant of Aaron, he was in fact, more importantly, the last living heir of the Oniad family, a branch of Zadokite line of high priests. He was one of the sons of Zadok, a legit priest who should have followed in his father's footsteps if it wasn't for his Hellenized uncle named Jason. Yep. Some say that Yason is the equivalent name of Jesus, is what he says. I haven't heard of that. Disposing of his brother Onias III, then bribing or buying the priesthood, becoming an illegitimate high priest in Jerusalem, while his nephew Onias IV escaped to Egypt and built a functioning, more legitimate temple that has proceeded over at Leontopolis, aka the land of Onias, as the last known Zadokite high priest. I would kind of disagree with that last statement, because actually Yochanan the Immerser was actually the last known Zadokite priest. But very interesting comment, and just confirms everything we've just gone over as well. And again, in my article, there's links to the sources. So sources are cited all about the Temple of Onias. We have a tab in our second group, and it has all these links here and even more articles and sources to the Temple of Onias as well. So let me share this link. This is going to be the next video we're about to watch, and it just goes more into all of the same information. And this one's 13 minutes, but I have it on 1.1 speed or 1.10 speed. So it'll probably be about 12, maybe less minutes, around 12 minutes. But, this one is pretty interesting as well. And, excuse me. So let me mute my mic, and then we'll get right into it here. And Shabbat Shalom to all those just joining in as well. Glad you all can make it.
What's good, everybody? Who was like God is back with another video. This one is actually pretty interesting. Sort of a little bit of a different angle that I've been doing so far. You'll probably actually see a little bit more of that going forward on the channel. But today we're actually going to be examining some secret, well-hidden biblical facts and things that people don't actually know. So today we're going to be examining this secret Jewish Egyptian temple, meaning a temple dedicated to Yahuah was actually in Egypt for a little while, for hundreds of years, alongside the one in Jerusalem. And most people, just like me, didn't know about that. So we're going to examine this Egyptian temple, see if there's any prophetic significance from the prophets, and see how it ties in all into the bigger picture. So if you're cool with that, then stick around, because we're going to open up this can of worms full force. And to do that, we're going to start with Isaiah 19. Isaiah 19, from the prophet Isaiah, very interesting oracle. It reads like this: In that day there will be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar to the Lord at its border. It will be a sign and a witness to the Lord of hosts in the land of Egypt. When they cry to the Lord because of oppressors, he will send them a savior and a defender and deliver them. And the Lord will make himself known to the Egyptians. And the Egyptians will know the Lord in that day with worship and with sacrifice and offering. And they will make vows to the Lord and perform them. And the Lord will strike Egypt, striking and healing. And they will return to the Lord, and he will listen to their pleas for mercy and heal them. That's verses 19 to 22. And then verses 23 to 24, the prophet reads this: In that day there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria, and Assyria will come into Egypt, and Egypt into Assyria, and the Egyptians will worship with the Assyrians. And that day Israel will be the third with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing in the midst of the earth, whom the Lord of hosts has blessed, saying, Blessed be Egypt, my people, and Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel, my inheritance. Now, the amazing thing about this passage here is that God is giving these other nations the titles and things that he uses for Israel, which was his people in the Old Testament, his people exclusively. Now, in this prophetic picture and this beautiful picture of harmony, God is calling Assyria the work of his hands, and he's calling the Egyptians his people. So that in itself is pretty striking, the image of peace here. But as far as a little bit of commentary, a lot of people consider this prophecy an end times prophecy. And I get that too, because the whole unity between Egypt, Assyria, and Israel, who were enemies at different times, just them all coming together and worshiping God in perfect fellowship. I believe that's looking forward to the new Eden and the total global body of believers and things like that. But it must also be said that many Egyptian and Assyrian folks hold these verses very dear to their heart. This is something that Vocab Malone got into. A lot of Egyptian and Assyrians to this day hold these verses in a very special place. The word Christian just means follower of Christ. It's a Greek phrase. And other people were calling the Christians Christians. So in other words, you have these followers of the Messiah. And it's through this message and the gospel movement that all these other nations have come back to believing in the one true God. That's going to play a role later. Because we think about it and we understand how significant God's concern for his name is. Right? There's a reason why God did all those plagues in Egypt, because he wanted the Egyptians to know that he was the Lord, to know that he was Yahweh. He wanted the Philistines to know that he was Yahweh. And there's the verse of the day today is Psalm 46:10, which reads, let me pull it up. All right, so the verse of the day today actually reads, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." And just as God's spoken, so has it been. And that's the incredible thing, because you figure the time this was written, the Jews, the Israelites, have been very exclusive in their exclusive worship of Yahweh, of the one true creator God. You'd be hard-pressed to find many groups outside of the Israelites and the communities of Israelites who believe in this one true God. But because of Jesus and the gospel movement, it brought thousands of Gentiles, ultimately millions of people from pagan nations, out of their spiritual paganism, out of the rebellious sons of God, back to worshiping the one true God. And that's true no matter how much you want to slice it. So we have Jesus to thank for us and our ancestors all around the world coming to faith in the one true God. So just as God has spoken when this wasn't true, so has it been fulfilled before our very eyes. And while we're living in a time where this verse rings true, and even holds a significance for us today, because many people exalt God, many nations exalt God and honor God in the name of the Lord, just like he had been yearning, and just as he spoke what happened in the Old Testament. It's incredible stuff. So we see God's concern for his name and the importance of that. And God in this oracle is saying he's going to have his name be exalted in Egypt. Now, as far as the end time potential stuff might go, it's also important to recognize that in the Maccabean period, there was actually a pagan temple in Egypt that was abandoned and got reused to the service of Yahweh by the legitimate Levitical priests. This is a whole interesting rabbit hole, so we're going to get right into it. Let me just get into it. And this Egyptian temple is called the Temple of Onias. Temple of Onias. So, here's what you got to understand, a couple of basic facts for this. Before the Hasmonean coup, the house of Zadok ran the second temple, which is the temple that the exiles were built after they returned from Babylon, their exile in Babylon, that temple that Jesus would go to, and the temple that would be destroyed 4 decades after Jesus. So the temple of Ezra, Nehemiah, the latter prophets, Zechariah, Haggai, Malachi, to the temple that Jesus would have preached to, that would get destroyed right after he was crucified. That'll play an important role later. This is the temple that we're talking about. Now, about 100, 200 years before Christ, there was this Jewish dynasty called the Hasmoneans, where they essentially took control of the Jerusalem temple. But before then, it was the house of Zadok who was controlling the second temple, which is significant because we can see in the Old Testament scriptures, God is very clear about his faithfulness to the legitimate priests, even when this coup happens. So we unpack, we get to Ezekiel 44, and let me just say this. This is the famous Ezekiel temple vision. And the Ezekiel temple vision is very interesting because there are some things that are very idealistic, very symbolic, very things that don't even make sense for a physical temple. And yet there are some things that seem to point to the second temple. So the Ezekiel vision is very interesting when we just lay everything out, all the elements that are there. You know, and just like in the book of Ezekiel, in the beginning, the spirit and the glory of God leaves because of all the idolatry and all the paganism. By the end of the book of Ezekiel, it's coming back to this restored, renewed temple. So this is the vision we're talking about. And in Ezekiel 44, God is talking about his faithfulness to the house of Zadok. Now, Zadok was a priest back in David's time who was faithful to him. So now, in this prophetic vision in Ezekiel, he's saying that the house of Zadok has the exclusive right to be high priests, to enter the presence of the Lord, and so on and so forth. And the interesting thing about that is, we consider what Scripture says. When you actually look at history, the house of Zadok would always have control over the second temple. This is from the Jewish Virtual Library. You know, I'm not making this up. This house of Zadok would retain control of the second temple throughout its history. And even when we get to these Hasmonean, even when they would take over, then the house of Zadok, the legitimate priests, in other words, they went down to Egypt and converted a pagan temple to the service of Yahweh. And this temple in Egypt would last right until 73 AD. So right when the Jerusalem temple was destroyed in AD 70, pretty famous biblical event, so too would this Egyptian Jewish temple be destroyed that most people don't even know existed, but this one will be destroyed as well. And all these things have a big importance, and we're going to circle back to that. The legitimate priests would always have a temple to rule over. The legitimate priests would always have a temple to rule over and worship Yahweh, Jehovah in, even when this was going on in Jerusalem. The Zadokite priests, the house of Zadok, as I said, using this formerly pagan temple in Egypt to the service of God. Now, why is this all important? Well, first of all, you think about Isaiah 19. It becomes a lot more interesting when we consider that there was a time when a formerly pagan temple would be used for God exclusively in Egypt. And when you think about this actual temple, actual sacrifices going to Yahweh in Egypt, we can only think about the effect that would have had in that generation of all the potential Egyptians and cultures who could have been brought to worshiping the one true God and to get their hearts prepared for the Christ from the Old Testament scriptures based on them being exposed to the religion of the one true God. Right? God is talking about his name being honored in Egypt. His name was honored in Egypt because he had a presence, a noticeable presence in Egypt long before Christ ever came on the scene. Now, someone like me who likes to study prophecy and things like that, I think that's very interesting. But here's where the real significance really comes in. Let me just scroll down a little bit here. So could it be that Jesus was actually who he said he was, and like he predicted, his generation would face judgment because they rejected the time of the visitation? The anointed one of the scriptures who had been anticipated had finally shown up, and they had missed it. The leaders rejected Jesus. Now, if Jesus was fake and an idol worshiper, they would have been right to reject him. But they still faced God's judgment after rejecting him, so it couldn't be that he was a false prophet. Again, not the Jerusalem temple was destroyed, but the Egyptian temple. So all temples of God were destroyed, and ultimately shows the way you consider all assets that Jesus really was who he said he was, that he really was the Messiah. He came, he made the ultimate sacrifice, he was rejected by his generation, that led to him being sacrificed, and it was because of that the gospel spread to the Gentiles. But to return to our point here, it's just amazing. It's just amazing to think that all forms of Jewish worship have been forcefully ended right after the crucifixion of Christ. We have God's judgment on the nation, but it's not that they rejected Jesus, because if Jesus was a false prophet, they would have been right in rejecting him. But the judgment still came. So Jesus was a true prophet, and by rejecting him, Israel was facing judgment. That's all the evidence is pointing to. And both what the New Testament says about it and some of the other Jewish writings actually align with Daniel 9:26, this prophecy that after the anointed one is cut off, the temple will be destroyed. See? So it's really interesting to put all the pieces together. And the big takeaway is this. We see that God is faithful to his covenant and to his priesthood, basically to the sons of Levi throughout history. Even this period between the Old Testament and New Testament, like we see with the house of Zadok and the Maccabean period, this and that. But when the time was right, the Messiah would come, make the ultimate sacrifice according to a better priesthood, the priesthood of Melchizedek, not the priesthood of Aaron or Levi. When that happened, the ultimate atonement had been made. And we can see this reinforced in the destruction of the temple. Now, I think this is more. I'm just going to leave it there. In AD 30 to 33, Jesus Christ made the ultimate sacrifice. It's cool to put all these pieces together. I hope I wasn't so redundant that I confused y'all, but God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.
Yeah, pretty amazing stuff there. And yeah, I just wanted to point out real quick at the end there, he was talking about how that generation was going to experience judgment because they rejected him, which works more into the little season. So that's a whole nother subject, though, which we do want to talk about here in our fellowships. I want to do it when we all have a good time to go over it, because I know Sister Miranda, she's got a lot of information about that. So, but anyways, whole nother subject. And Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to everybody who has come in recently. Good to see you all here. And
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Just a quick review. So we're going over the Temple of Onias, and that's a temple that was built in Egypt by Onias IV, who was the son of Zadok. And it's the fulfillment of Isaiah 19 there as well. And so this next one, it's about 18 minutes. And again, I have it at 1.1. So it shouldn't be quite 18 minutes, but again, this is going more into the Temple of Onias and some of the background. I think this is the one that mentions, where they have it written in their own Talmud about the sons of Zadok and how they were legitimate. So, and then after that, if anybody has any questions or anything, we will definitely go over them. And we might touch on the calendar a bit as well, or discuss whatever anybody else would like to bring up. But let me go ahead and play this, and I'll mute my mic. And again, the video link is right there in the chat. And I'll try to remember to put these links in the video description if you're watching from YouTube later on as well. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and play.
At this time, Zion, I want to share our history bit with us today. This history bit is going to be in line with the teaching that we're going to provide. I felt that it would be fitting to provide this information, not only for the sake of information for information purposes, but also to see how prophecy has its way of coming to fruition. I want to read to us concerning Judean Israelite temples in Egypt. The first reading that I'm going to provide is going to be coming from an excerpt from the two temples in Egypt by the Sephorim blog. This is where I got this particular information. Dealing with the first temple in Egypt, the temple at Elephantine. Ancient papyri found on the Egyptian island Elephantine reveal the forgotten story of a Jewish temple that was built there. According to those documents, Jews, these Judean Israelites living in Egypt, when it was still an independent state, built a temple for Hashem at Elephantine. This occurred after the destruction of the first temple, but before the construction of the second temple. Pause for a moment. This means that this particular temple in Egypt, Elephantine, was built somewhere in between that time frame of Babylonian captivity, because that's the time frame in between the destruction of the first temple in 586 BCE and what we would regard as the beginning of the building of the temple after 70 years of being in captivity. Later, when the Persians conquered Egypt, they destroyed most of its temples, but allowed the Jewish temple at Elephantine to remain. Sometime afterwards, the priests of the Egyptian deity Khnum and the local Persian rulers colluded against the Jewish community at Elephantine, destroying their temple and taking the temple's gold and silver for themselves. The Jewish priests of the Elephantine temple, led by a priest named Yedaniah, sent letters according to the Persian appointed Jewish governor of Judah and the Kufian governorate of Samaria to intervene on their behalf and lobby the Persians for the restoration of their temple. In these letters, the priests of Elephantine repeatedly mentioned that they wish to resume sacrificing meal offerings, burnt offerings, and incense, which as well we see seems to be halakhically problematic. This particular statement, which was in quotes, where it says, which as we will see seems to be halakhically problematic, this is the statement of the author of the blog, who is a rabbinic Jew. So this particular individual is speaking from a theological perspective that is rabbinic. Now, the practices in the time of the Judean Israelite kingdom prior to the first century did not share the same identical theological perspectives. So I just wanted to make that note. I'll keep reading. It seems that the second temple in Jerusalem had already been built by this time, as the Elephantine priests mentioned in their letter that they had also written to Yochanan, the Kohen Gadol, that's high priest in Jerusalem, but had not received a reply. The Elephantine temple was eventually rebuilt, but the Jewish community at Elephantine did not last much longer. And as I noted, this was written by the Sepharim blog in an article called The Two Temples in Egypt. Now, this particular Jewish temple, it was at the military garrison on Elephantine Island, and it has been known from the papyrus sources since 1911. So it's been over 100 years that this information has been known about this temple in Egypt. And it was built sometime in the 6th century. It was destroyed in 410 BCE at the hands of the priests of the Egyptian god Khnum, which we already mentioned. And then it was rebuilt and later abandoned around about 400 BCE. Now, this particular information is a history on the first temple that was built in Egypt. First Judean Israelite temple built in Egypt. But there was a second one that was built also in Egypt. This is the Judean Israelite temple at Leontopolis. And it was somewhere around about 170 BCE when this was built. 170 BCE is a critical period in the history of the Judean Israelites, because this was during the time when the Syrian or the Greek Syrian kingdom had come into Judah and wanted to Hellenize all of their empire, which included the land of Israel. So Flavius Josephus writes in Antiquities of the Jews regarding this particular temple. And he writes, but then the son of Onias, the high priest, who was of the same name with his father, and who fled to King Ptolemy, who was called Philometor, lived now at Alexandria, as we have said already. When this Onias saw that Judea was oppressed by the Macedonians and their kings, out of a desire to purchase to himself a memorial and eternal fame, he resolved to send to King Ptolemy and King Cleopatra to ask leave of them that he might build a temple in Egypt, like to that at Jerusalem, and might ordain Levites and priests out of their own stock. The chief reason why he was desirous so to do was that he relied upon the prophet Isaiah, who lived above 600 years before, and foretold that there certainly was to be a temple built to Almighty God in Egypt by a man that was a Jew. Onias was elevated with this prediction and wrote the following epistle to Ptolemy and Cleopatra, quote, having done many and great things for you in the affairs of the war by the assistance of God, and that in Celesyria, and Phoenicia. I came at length with the Jews to Leontopolis and to other places of your nation, where I found that the greatest part of your people had temples in an improper manner, and that on this account they bear ill will one against another, which happens to the Egyptians by reason of the multitude of their temples and the difference of opinions about divine worship. Now I find a very fit place in a castle that hath its name from the country Diana. This place is full of materials of several sorts and replenished with sacred animals. I desire, therefore, that you will grant me leave to purge this holy place, which belongs to no master and is fallen down, and to build there a temple to Almighty God, after the pattern of that in Jerusalem, and of the same dimensions, that may be for the benefit of thyself and thy wife and children, that those Jews which dwell in Egypt may have a place where they may come and meet together in mutual harmony one with another, and he subservient to thy advantages. For the prophet Isaiah foretold that there should be an altar in Egypt to the Lord God. I and many other such things did he prophesy relating to that place. The account of Josephus in the Jewish war, or War of the Jews, refers to the Onias who built the temple at Leontopolis as the son of Simon, implying that it was Onias III and not his son who fled to Egypt and built the temple. This account, however, is contradicted by the story that Onias III was murdered in Antioch in 171. Josephus's account in the Antiquities is therefore more probable, namely that the builder of the temple was a son of the murdered Onias III, and that a mere youth at the time of his father's death. He had fled to the court of Alexandria in consequence of the Syrian persecutions, perhaps because he thought that salvation would come to his people from Egypt. Now, this portion that I just read here primarily has to do with explaining who this Onias was. There was another named Onias, a high priest. He was a righteous high priest in Jerusalem right before the Syrian Seleucids came in and wanted to Hellenize the whole land of Judea. So his son flees down into Egypt, and there he petitions to build a temple. I'm going to keep reading. Ptolemy VI Philometor was pharaoh at that time. He probably had not yet given up his claims to Syria and Judea, and gladly gave refuge to such a prominent person of the neighboring country. Onias, now requesting the king and his sister wife Cleopatra too to allow him to build a sanctuary in Egypt similar to the one at Jerusalem, where he would employ Levites and priests of his own clan. And he referred to the prediction of the prophet Isaiah that a Jewish temple would be erected in Egypt. Now, just to look at the legitimacy of its sacrificial cult. In other words, the legitimacy that this temple was actually functioning. The reputation of the temple of Onias enjoyed is indicated by the fact that the Septuagint, written in the Jewish community of Alexandria, changes the phrase city of destruction to city of righteousness. Now I want to pause for a moment, because the writers of this information are primarily writing with a thought in mind that their Hebrew scriptures were older than the Septuagint. But we know that the Masoretic text of scripture was developed around the 6th century AD, somewhere from that point to the 9th century AD, and that they were built upon the works of a convert to Judaism in the 2nd century AD, whose name was Aquila of Sinope. Now, the Septuagint was developed from a much earlier Hebrew source than that of the Masoretic text. So when the writer writes and he makes the statement that the Septuagint changed the phrase city of destruction to city of righteousness, it's really the other way around, because the Septuagint comes from an earlier source than that of the Masoretic text. And we'll probably talk a little bit more about that when we get into the text. I'll keep reading. The Egyptian Jews sacrificed frequently in the temple of Leontopolis, although at the same time they fulfilled their duty toward the temple at Jerusalem, as Philo narrates that he himself did. The temple at Leontopolis never gained the popularity of that of Jerusalem, while the Alexandrian Jews might like having a subordinate temple close to home. Support for the temple of Onias never was seen to replace the need to send tithes and pilgrims to Jerusalem. Indeed, the Leontopolis temple site seems never to have achieved even the importance of the synagogue in Alexandria's Jewish quarter. I wanted to share this information today with regard to the evidence of there being temples built after the pattern of the temple in Jerusalem being built in Egypt, to provide evidence regarding the prophecy that we're going to cover in the text of the 19th chapter of Isaiah. So I trust that this information has provided you with a understanding of what was happening in history over in Egypt, and how the spread of the faith of Israel had taken a strong foothold in the land of Egypt. Will the Most High be praised.
All right, so pretty amazing stuff there. And oh yeah, there's one more thing I wanted to share as well. 1 second. Right here, actually. So this is going to be, so it's in Bible Hub. I'll put the link here in our chat. So this is just kind of going over, you know, the history of Onias and who they were. And I just thought it was really interesting, you know, something real quick we can go over. Let me zoom in. All right. So again, this is from Bible Hub about the name Onias here. And so Onias is a name associated with several Israelite high priests during the Second Temple period. The most notable figures bearing the name are Onias I, II, III, and IV. These individuals played significant roles in the religious and political life of the Israelite people during a time of great change and turmoil. So Onias I, he was a high priest who served in the late 4th and early 3rd centuries BC. He is believed to be the son of Yahuah, the high priest mentioned in Nehemiah 12, 11, and 22. Onias the First's tenure is not extensively documented in biblical texts, but he is recognized for maintaining the traditions and practices of Israelite faith during the early Hellenistic period. Yep, this is when these guys started taking over. He was still a son of Zadok, hence why we get Ezekiel 44. And then Onias II. He was the son of Simeon the Just, Shimeon ben Zadok. He served as high priest in the early 3rd century BC. His tenure was marked by tensions with the Ptolemaic rulers of Egypt, who controlled Judea at the time. Onias II is noted for his refusal to pay tribute to the Ptolemaic king, which led to a crisis that was eventually resolved through diplomatic means. His actions reflect the complex relationship between the Israelite religious leadership and the ruling powers of the era. So Onias III. So it's pretty interesting. At first, they had a problem with the Ptolemaic Empire until the Seleucid Empire started taking over this whole area, pushed the Ptolemaic Empire back. Yeah, that's an even deeper history, but let me continue. So, Onias III, the son of Simeon II, he was a high priest in the early 2nd century BC. He is known for his piety and dedication to Hebrew Israelite faith, the belief in Yahuah. He was the son of Zadok. Notice I don't say this word here because this is not a biblical word. They weren't Jewish. They were Israelite, Hebrews. So Onias III's tenure was marked by an internal strife with external pressures, particularly from the Seleucid Empire. He opposed the Hellenizing influences within Judea and sought to preserve the traditional Hebrew way of life, the Israelite way of life. His conflict with the Seleucid appointed high priest Jason, the usurping second son, led to his removal from office and eventual assassination. The turmoil during his time is seen as a precursor to the Maccabean revolt. So again, the Maccabeans were not of the true priesthood either. Onias IV, the son of Onias III, he fled to Egypt following his father's assassination. In Egypt, he established an Israelite temple at Leontopolis, which served as a center of worship for the Israelite community there. This temple, while not sanctioned by the Jerusalem usurped priesthood, provided a place for Israelites in the diaspora to maintain their religious practices. And it wasn't accepted because, these were the Hasmoneans, usurpers that were in there. They didn't want the true priesthood in there. They just kind of conveniently leave all that out, though. So Onias IV's actions highlight the challenges faced by the Israelite people in maintaining their identity and faith in foreign lands. Well, it's also the fulfillment of Isaiah 19 as well. So the biblical references, while the name Onias does not appear directly in the canonical books of the Bible, the historical context of these high priests is intertwined with the events described in the books of Maccabees, which are part of the Apocrypha. These texts provide insight into the struggles and resilience of the Israelites during the Hellenistic period. So Maccabees equal usurpers, Onias equals sons of Zadok. Maccabees took over. So the historical significance. The Oniad high priests were instrumental in shaping the religious and political landscape of Judea during a time of significant change. I should say Israel. Their leadership, challenges, and responses to the external pressures reflect the broader narrative of the Israelite perseverance and faithfulness to Yahuah's covenant. The legacy of the Oniads is a testament to the enduring strength of the Israelite faith amidst adversity. All right. So does anybody have any questions or anything they would like to add? And while you're thinking of that, I would just like to say this proves the importance of the sons of Zadok. And reading through my article a bit further down, so this is where we left off here, but if we come down to, where is it? Excuse me. The New Testament connection here in my article, actually this is exactly where I wanted to go. So this is the it's called the Ancient Madaba Mosaic Map, and it was found in the country of Jordan, which is literally just like right here on this map. But anyways, as you can see, in Greek, this is called Bethabara. Bethabara, or Beth Abara, Bethany, as it's known as well. This is exactly where Yohanan the Immerser baptized Yahusha Messiah. These are the cities in the wilderness, and look where Qumran is located. These are exactly where the caves were found. Located right here. So this is the Red Sea. This is the Jordan. This is where Messiah was baptized himself. This is where the Dead Sea Scroll caves were found. This is the city of Jerusalem. So there's a whole thing out there that, the land of Israel isn't actually the land of Israel in the scriptures, things of that nature. We have these mountains or these petroglyphs or these Paleo-Hebrew writings here, there, and everywhere else. Well, the thing is, the Dead Sea Scrolls themselves prove this is the true location. All these other things that we're seeing all across the rest of the earth, that's showing that the 10 tribes had dispersed all throughout the earth. This is why we see, Paleo-Hebrew writings here in the U.S. The same thing in Australia. You can find the same things all over the place, really. But anyways, so the Dead Sea Scrolls are very important in that way as well. And Bethabara, according to John 1:28, is where Yohanan was immersing. This is going to go with Joshua 15:61 through 62. The cities in the wilderness, Bethabara, Midian, Sekah, Nibshan, and the city of Salt, and Ein Gedi, which is also another location of Dead Sea Scrolls, Ein Gedi. So we can see all of these are located right here, right in the wilderness of Israel. This was considered the wilderness. This was considered, part of Israel. And I just wanted to tie that in with the Dead Sea Scrolls community and how they called their city Damascus. They called this whole land Damascus. But the cities in it were these different wilderness cities, as we read in Joshua. And why is that very significant? Because, look at this. Paul, he was on the road to Damascus. So this is going to show in the Damascus document, it's going to show, so column 3, verse 13, column 3, verse 14. It's going to show they call their city, or their land, the land of Damascus. In the land of Damascus, right here at the bottom as well. So, Acts 24:14. And this also proves Paul is not a false apostle. One sec, hold on. Yeah, exactly, Rachel. So, yeah, Josephus accounts, they're not always accurate. They're embellished. And, you know, a lot of historians and people like to use his writings to try to make these confirmations. And, yeah, you're right. He was a Hasmonean, a Flavian, a Pharisee, and Essene trained. So Essene has nothing to do with the Dead Sea Scrolls community. Essene is more of a Gnostic sect that came out of Egypt at about the same time. So the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Qumran community, they never once referred to themselves as Essene. They called themselves the followers of the way, the Yahuah, and the sons of Zadok. The reason they try to connect the Essene to them is to try to discredit them. And then some areas they try to connect all these Gnostic writings to the Dead Sea Scrolls, and there's no connection to them at all. There's not one fragment of Gnostic writings found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Some will try to push otherwise, but yeah, no, that's a good point there, Rachel. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah,
She
yeah,
already
and that's
left. She already left.
okay. Hey, Shalom.
Oh no, she's back. Good. Yeah.
And yeah, Sarah, most everything else in our world is a lie. Well, I don't agree they could have been placed there by someone else. Because, like I was showing right here on the map, well, I'll scroll up to it here in a bit. I don't want to lose my spot. But just like I showed previous on the map, their community was located exactly where the scrolls were. I think they add to them, which is why we see all the author's insertions in an attempt to, you know, lead people away from what's really in them. And then, you know, they were found in the late 1800s and late 1600s as well. So all the good stuff has really been taken out of it, and we got really the fragments left over, literally.
I tend to think that that's probably the correct place. I mean, Qumran looks like a melted city, but it is possible that they could have been placed there. You did mention that some were found in the 1600s. I've never heard that. You're saying the ones found after the 1940s, those were just leftover fragments?
Yeah, precisely.
They were been found prior to that?
Exactly. So I'll have to find it again. Maybe we can go over that next fellowship.
That would be interesting.
They originally found them in like the late 1600s in the same area. And then in the late 1800s, which actually in our other group, there's a PDF in the Dead Sea Scrolls section, and it's called Fragments of a Zadokite Work. That actually goes into these fragments that were found in the late 1800s. And then we have the more recent, the 1940s find. And that's what we have nowadays. And that's like the leftovers of what everybody else had found prior.
Okay. I That's interesting. I had never heard of any before the 40s.
Yeah. They don't like to talk about these things, just like, the Temple of Onias. They don't like to talk about that. And they don't like to talk about how Paul was on the road to Damascus, Qumran, which is what we're going to see here. Not Damascus, Syria. Why? Because Paul was going, when he was a Pharisee, this was when he was on the road to persecute the true priesthood. And so as we read here in Acts 24:14, you see, this I confess to you, that according to the way which they call a sect, so I worship the Elohim of my fathers, believing all that has been written in the Torah and the Nebi'im. So he was following the way. They called themselves followers of the way, which I do go over earlier in the article. They called themselves followers of the way, the Yahuah, and the sons of Zadok. But Paul was on the road to Damascus when Messiah came to him, and he repented and turned to the way. This is going to be Acts 9, verses 3 through 9. And it came to be that as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly a light flashed around him from the Shamayim, and he fell to the ground. And he heard a voice saying to him, Shaul, Shaul, why do you persecute me? And he said, Who are you, Adonai? And the Adon said, I am Yahusha, whom you persecute. This is hard for you to kick again, it is hard for you to kick against the prods, both trembling and being astonished. He said, Adonai, what do you want me to do? And the Adon said to him, Arise and go into the city, and you shall be told what you have to do. What city? Damascus, the Qumran. Being told what to do by the people of Qumran, the sons of Zadok. And the men journeying with him stood speechless, hearing indeed the voice, but seeing no one. And Shaul arose from the ground, but when his eyes were opened, he saw no one. And leading him by the hand, they brought him into Damascus. And he was there 3 days without sight, and did not eat or drink. Is this the very Damascus known as Qumran community? Known as the Qumran community known as the Qumran community today? I absolutely 100% truly believe so. So he also spent 3 years in Damascus. Why? The Qumran community had a rigorous initiation process for new members. This process included a probationary period that could last up to 3 years. The applicant, at least 20 years old, would travel to Qumran to meet the guardian at the head of the congregation, who would then examine them and assess their spirit. Aspirants from outside the community would have to be met by the guardian before they could be informed about its rules. Once they met the guardian's approval, he took the oath of the covenant, swearing to adhere to the Torah, and the 2-year probation period would start. Gaining and showing approval could take up to a year in itself, and Paul, being a Pharisee prior, no doubt took a year to prove himself and gain acceptance. So this is also going to be found in Galatians 1, verses 17 through 18. So people try to use Galatians a lot to say the law is abolished and done away with. Look, that's what Paul's saying. No, not at all. It actually proves he went to the Qumran community and took a vow to uphold the Torah. So Galatians 1, 17 through 18. Neither did I go up to Jerusalem to those who were emissaries before me, or the apostles, but I went to Arabia, and then returned again to Damascus. Then, after 3 years, I went to Jerusalem to learn from Kepha, and remained with him for 15 days. So this is going to be found in 1QS, the community rule. Then, when he has completed 1 year within the community, the congregation shall deliberate his case with regard to his understanding and observance of the law, the Torah. But when the 2nd year has passed, he shall be examined. And if it be his destiny to enter the community, then he shall be inscribed among his brethren in the order of his rank for the law, the Torah, and for justice, and for the pure meal. So, he went from Damascus, so Galatians 1:17-18, he went from Damascus to Jerusalem. So scrolling back up to the map here, look how close it is to Jerusalem. Damascus, Jerusalem. It was literally like 3 or 4 miles away. Not only that, so people try to say, oh, it was Damascus, Syria. Well, they do that to try to hide this fact right here, that the Qumran community is exactly where Paul went, converted, and became part of this community, and then started following the way. So they wanted to get you to think, oh, he traveled thousands and thousands of miles away into Damascus, Syria, to arrest somebody out of his jurisdiction to bring them all the way back to here. No, they have plenty of people that can do that. Why did he go to Damascus? It was right here, literally next to Jerusalem. Then when he spent his 3 years here, just like we read in Galatians, he met Peter here and learned from him another 12 days or 15 days. What was it? Yeah. So this is going to show the huge connection between Paul and the Dead Sea Scrolls and how he became part of that community. And Acts 20:1-7 is showing Paul observed the Zadok calendar, and he was observing festivals outside of the land of Jerusalem. And so how do we know that? So where is it? So he went to Macedonia here, then he went through those parts, and he came to Yahuah, where he spent 3 months. When he was about to set sail to Syria, he decided to return through Macedonia, and a plot was made against him by the Yehudim. And then he came to, and he came to Timothy and Turkios and Trophimos of Asia, and these, going ahead, waited for us at Tros. So they were at Tros, and then they sailed away from Philippos after the days of Matzot, the days of unleavened bread. So here they were in Philippos, observing the days of unleavened bread. So all the people were like, oh, you can't observe the festivals outside the land. Well, Paul was.
Yeah, Paul definitely did.
Yep.
His mission was to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, which is why he was traveling everywhere outside of Jerusalem. That's where he was commissioned to. And
precisely.
To help bring the lost sheep of the house of Israel back into covenant.
Exactly, and that's it. Not a lot of people realize that.
No, that's why they removed Acts 29 from the canon.
Yeah, this is true. Where it shows Paul going to Britain, actually.
Was preaching to the brethren up in the British Isles. And that's where Joseph of Arimathea traveled quite a bit up that way too, and I suspect Yahushua went with him since he was his uncle. That Yahushua said his mission. Yahushua said he came to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So where did he find them? They
Yep.
were scattered.
I'm trying to find that verse. I know it's the odd thing is it's actually in the Sefer.
Yeah, it's in the Sefer and the Yahuah scriptures. Are you looking for where he was up preaching to the brethren?
Yeah, I got it right here, I think.
Okay.
That's what it says.
Yeah, I'll look it up in the Yahuah scriptures.
Yeah, I don't think it's in there, though.
Oh, maybe
Right.
it
Oh,
isn't.
this is just commentary on Acts 29.
My
Oh, wait,
parents
no.
gave me a copy of that chapter years ago, like 30, 40 years ago, and I wish I knew where they got it from. Nope, the
Here it is.
Yah scripture doesn't have 29, Acts 29,
Yeah.
but the Sefer does, which is interesting.
So, yeah, here it is actually right here. So this has got some commentary in it, but, Acts 29:1. And Paul, full of blessings of Messiah and abounding in the Spirit, the Ruach, departed out of Rome, determining to go into Spain, for he had a long time purposed to journey thitherward, and was minded also to go from thence into Britain. So a bit of a King James Old English, but you can see he was going to Spain, and then from there he was going to go into Britain. Britain was named by the Romans. The word Brit means covenant, and Ish from the word man or people. And this is what Ken had brought up as well. Here, actually, this is a pretty good site. I'll put it in the chat here.
Wow, that's neat.
Yeah. I'm putting this in the chat for sure. And then 1 second, I'll get back to that. Let me put it in the other group here as well. All right. So Acts 29:2, for he had heard in Phoenicia that certain of the children of Israel, about the time of the Assyrian captivity, had escaped by the sea to the isles afar off, as spoken by the prophet, and called by the Romans Britain. So the prophet spoken here was the prophet Ezra. Interesting because, they take out a lot of Ezra's books.
Yeah.
Acts 29:3. And Yahuah commanded the gospel to be preached far hence to the Gentiles and to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Lost sheep of the house of Israel.
Yeah, it's funny. Oftentimes when it's referring to Gentiles or the Jews are referring to the Gentiles, it's actually the Israelite tribes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That have been scattered.
So Acts 29:4, and no man hindered Paul, for he testified boldly of Messiah before the tribunes and among the people. And he took with him certain of the brethren which abode with him at Rome. And they took shipping at Ostium, and having the winds fair, were brought safely into a haven of Spain. And yeah, it keeps going on into it. Really fascinating. How long is this? Not too long. So it goes to verse 26, it looks like. Fascinating stuff. But yeah, that kind of backs up what you were speaking there about before as well, Ken. Are you still in here? Yeah, you're still in here. There's also, we went over it before, it's called the Book of Britain. And I have to look it up again, but it basically talks about, I think it was Paul's journey into Britain. I
Yeah,
could be wrong. Oh, go ahead. What was that?
verse 7 says he went to Britain as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And it said
They
great
departed out of. They
multitude.
departed. Yeah.
Yeah.
They departed out of Spain, and Paul and his company, finding a ship in America. Weird, huh?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought, that sounds interesting.
Sailed into Britain. So they departed out of Spain, finding a ship in America, sailed into Britain. Is there a town in Spain called... Hold on.
Yeah, I thought I would look that up and see. I just noticed that. Let's see what we can find. Has anybody else heard of Amorica?
Yeah, I guess this is it right here. Amorica. Oh, because that would be, what, like France or Germany or something like that, modern day? And then Britain's like right up here. Interesting. Place in front of the sea.
There are no coincidences.
Yeah, definitely not.
There's a pagan deity named Amaruka.
Yeah, yeah. And isn't that the feathered or plumed serpent or whatever?
Yeah,
Another
like
there's one,
what
yeah.
what America's named after.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting. Definitely a lot of stuff to go into. No wonder they take and remove all these things out of scriptures. They don't want you to make these connections. You know, same thing with the Temple of Onias. Same thing with Damascus. Paul on the road to Damascus. Damascus, Qumran.
Yeah. It says the wise will search it out and will learn the truth.
Yeah. And then once you see all these connections, now it's easily understood why they want to hide all this. You know, they don't want to bother making mention of any of this because they don't want someone to look it up.
Okay.
And yeah, it's just really amazing.
It says there's an Amorica in Surrey Hills. So where is Surrey Hills? Ah, it says Australia. Can't be that one.
There's a Surrey close to London, isn't there? I don't know if that's the same.
Well, this Amorica, I found Amorica in Australia. It says Surrey Hills, Australia. But
Interesting.
there's other Amoricas here. I'm looking it up on maps. And you wonder if that was the original word, too.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And, yeah.
so there's something Amorican in France. Amorican Massif. I don't know what that
Yeah, because
means.
that would be modern day France, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, I see you there, Ken. You were on the toilet tablet. Couldn't respond. Yeah, definitely a lot to study here. Wow. You know, it's all praise to the Most High. You know, every time we come together, you know, there's always something being pointed out that's like, look, there's something else to go study deeper into.
Well, that Amorican France is on the northwest coast, not directly on the coast, but it looks like it's on the northwest side of France, near the sea, on the way to Great Britain. So we could have left Spain, hit Amorica, France, and then Great Britain. Boy, he sure got around.
Yeah, he definitely did get around, huh?
But then, maybe they traveled a lot more back then than what we're led on to believe. I mean, they really want us to believe that the world was so primitive, and it was not. It was quite a bit more advanced than what we've been led on to believe.
Yeah, they want us to think, we were just a bunch of cavemen slamming rocks together.
Yeah, they were all stupid up until the 1900s, and then humankind woke up.
If anything, we're less probably advanced.
Yeah, I
Ugh.
think our society is definitely devolved.
Yeah, and I forget who brought it up the other day, but talking about, technology, how, we have the same technology today that they had in the past. Just, today it's all downsized. Whereas, like cities were basically laid out just like computer chipboards and things that we see today.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. It's understood frequencies or cymatics, sonoluminescence, things like that. Really
During
interesting.
the millennial reign, when they were commanded to go up to the city for Sukkot, they probably had much more advanced transportation than we have today. I mean, just think if the airships were around, which they probably were back then, they traveled much quicker and in luxury. Our airplanes that we have to travel in today, we're stuck in these tiny seats where we're all cramped in and we're breathing stale air. I mean, we think airplanes are so advanced, but they're not compared to how they used to travel. So if traveling was so much easier back then I can see why the command to travel for Sukkot was strictly enforced. There was probably no excuses.
And they had airships back then as well, like big airships, and you can pretty much go wherever you want. And of course, they did the whole Hindenburg thing to like scare everybody and then stop production of those things.
Yeah.
Because they don't want people going wherever they want.
Yeah, they're trying to relegate us to 15 minutes of travel on foot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those 15-minute cities. But yeah, we can see the lengths that they go through to hide the history. They never talk about the sons of Zadok. They never talk about how important the Qumran community is. They don't ever make the connections with, Messiah, John the Baptist, and even Paul. They want you to think Paul was going to Damascus, Syria. And then they hide the fact he was going into Spain and Britain and all that as well.
Yeah.
They destroyed Cave 7 in the Dead Sea Scrolls by blowing it up to try to hide the Septuagint and New Testament fragments that were in there. That what a huge deception. And then, nobody really knows about these things because you have to go and dig deep to find all these things out.
Yeah.
You got to sort through all the trash to even get to the good stuff.
Jeremy, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Do you have more information about the cave being blown up? Is that in any of your PDFs?
Yeah, it's actually It's in the New Testament connection section of my article. It's actually where we were just kind of reading from, but if you go below that, I think it's in towards the end of that section. It goes into the Cave 7, and at the very bottom, I have links, like the links to the sources to all that. There's a book that Bill Cooper, he wrote about it, and there was other what was it? What do you call them? Historians that also back up what he was saying, and that the fragments found in Cave 7 match like the original Septuagint, and it was like 5 or 6 different books from the New Testament, like specific chapters and verses as well. So they blew up this cave to try and hide it. And then today they try to discredit everybody who talks about it. And Giza Vermes is all part of that, attempt to hide that. And Bill Cooper goes into Giza Vermes in his book as well, and how he's literally part of the cover-up. He's part of the whole thing. That's why we see all those authors' insertions in his book.
Are you
Or
talking
in his
about Bill
version.
Cooper who was murdered?
Yeah, I think it's that same one.
The same one who wrote the Four
It's
Horsemen?
pretty sure it's that same one. It could be a different Bill Cooper. I'd have to look at the sources again, but
Huh.
there's a whole book about it he wrote.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, on my article, so in the New Testament connection, and then the sources for that will be at the bottom of the page there. But there's Bill Cooper, and there's actually others who have evidence of Cave 7 as well. They don't like to talk about that a lot again because obvious reasons.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting, Ken. Put a pretty good argument together for Yahusha visiting the UK. Coming with his uncle, or stepdad, Joseph of Arimathea, who was minister of tin, the tin in Cornwall, UK, being a purist. There are places, there are places, names in Cornwall and banners, etc. Speaking of this, we have hymns mentioning it also. Wow, fascinating. So yeah, fascinating stuff, really. And yeah, Ken, you're right there in the UK, so you know all about this. And I see what you were talking about. So they would have taken the tin route. So that's it's a place in Cornwall, UK. Makes sense now. I was thinking tin like in the metal tin. So they took it through Spain and France by land, then northern France to the UK. To sail around from Spain would have been too dangerous. The Bay of Biscay is a death trap for sailors. I probably didn't pronounce that right. Oh, interesting. Yeah, you're a sailor too, so you would know about all that. Interesting. The Doomsday Book in Salisbury. Joseph of Arimathea was gifted 12 plots of land by the king, one for each tribe.
Really?
Wow.
Where are you reading that?
In the chat, that's what Ken's
Oh,
type.
Ken.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of into that English stuff.
Yeah, I would definitely suspect so, as he lives there. Yeah, so you probably know all this area that's being discussed better than probably all of us in here.
Maybe he should take us on a video tour of it.
Yeah, right? That's a
Mm-hmm.
good idea. Do
Yeah,
a
what do you
little
think,
video
Ken?
do a video tour for us on your sailboat.
We would love that. Love the video tours. He's being quiet.
No comment. At crickets. No, it will be really amazing when we can all visit each other in the New Kingdom,
Yeah,
visit
for
all the
sure.
areas. Sarah had a video tour of Winchester. Oh, nice.
It was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah, I'd like to see some videos. You should do that on your channel,
Yeah.
Ken.
It
Do
was
a video
beyond
tour.
exciting. Feeling like I was there visiting.
I should do a video tour of the desert here in Phoenix.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I'll do a video tour of old world buildings in Indianapolis. There's some
Yeah,
pretty
there
good
you
ones.
go.
There's some
That's
really good ones.
that might be a good idea, actually.
Yeah.
If we all like gather pictures and videos of these old world buildings in
Yeah.
each of our towns.
I visited some of them. I'll have to look up some of the history as far as what we can get. Yeah, I was real surprised when I started looking around Indianapolis. I saw some incredible old world buildings that looked real Romanesque. And I also see all over the place now buildings that have been mud flooded and how the roads are dug down and many of the buildings are built up. It looks like the buildings are built up, but I think what happened was the roads were dug out.
Yeah, exactly. And even here in Phoenix, downtown Phoenix, there's all kinds of Romanesque buildings and even the Capitol itself.
Isn't it amazing? The same architecture all over.
Yeah, the same exact architecture. And I forget whose channel I was watching. I think it was John Levy or John Levi. But I think it was John Levi. But they were doing construction in some town by him. And they were like this like restaurant or something was opening. And they were trying to dig out the basement to like make it a usable place.
Mm.
And as they were digging it out, they found straight up windows with glass panes and everything in them, looking out to just dirt because it was below the street level.
Oh, that's interesting.
And he's like, well, why would there be a glass window put into a building that was purposely put underground? Like they wouldn't put a glass window pane there if it
No,
was
they
meant to
won't.
be underground. You
When my husband and I went through Virginia, the Capitol is completely, the top of it is completely gold.
Wow.
Gold?
Gold, huh?
Yes, gold. Like bright gold.
Wow.
Get a picture or video of that when you go by it.
Yeah, when we pass back through, I'll make sure to get a video in and I'll put it in the chat.
Massachusetts capital is like that too.
Wow, it's got gold.
Oh,
Yep.
wow, yeah.
The one here is copper, I believe.
Which gold and copper and all that is conductors of energy.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I'm sure, they got them in Australia and the UK. They got these things everywhere, all the same architecture, all across the earth. There's no coincidences. Yeah, definitely a lot to research into. And oh wow, there it is. Massachusetts gold. And isn't it amazing they have that same style at like all the capitals or even old schools, things like that. And if you guys haven't heard about it, I would recommend on YouTube, My Lunch Break. That's literally his channel name, My Lunch Break.
Yeah, that's a
But
good
he talks,
channel.
yeah, no, he talks about these narratives and all across the earth, all these buildings have a fire narrative. Like they all have a fire narrative behind them.
They love their fire narratives.
Yep. And all across the earth, they're only historically about 200 years old. That whole 200-year timeline again thing. Yeah, he's got a new little season one. Yeah, he does. So yeah, that's something we want to talk about as well, but we'll probably do that on a day that's not a Sabbath. So yeah, does anybody have anything they would like to talk about? Or we could probably continue our reading in the Dead Sea Scrolls as well. It's been a couple weeks since we've done that.
That's always good.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Katrina? You have anything you would like to add? No worries. And yeah, I know there was someone who had brought up how in Australia there's like these giant underwater statues, and they're like humongous, kind of freaky looking actually. And there was a picture of a diver, and he was as big as like the diver was only like the size of the dude. These statues like nostril opening on his nose. Someone was trying to say, that's a huge cover up as well. I'm not sure if anyone else has heard of that before or not. history. Definitely a lie, and it's all to hide, the truth of Yahuah, really. So yeah, I guess we can do a little bit more reading from the Dead Sea Scrolls. We were reading from the community rule. Give me just a moment and I'll get that pulled up for us here. All right, so let me let's see where we're on right here. So this is going to be here. I'll share this in the group here. And then if you're watching on YouTube, I always have this link in the description. So this is the Dead Sea Scrolls translated, the Qumran Texts in English by Florentino Garcia Martinez. So it's not perfect, just like, there's really no translation in scriptures that's perfect, but it's one of the best in my opinion. So let's here, actually I wanted to continue or reread what we read last time because I believe it's very important. And so this is going to be Community Rule 1QS, column 10, and it's going to be page 14 or page 84 out of 586, which is the complete number. All right, so I think, where did I want to read? I think it was right here, because this is going to show about the heads of the months, the beginning of the year. So during the periods which he decreed at the commencement of the dominion of light during its rotation, and when retired to its appointed abode at the commencement of the vigils of darkness, when he opens his store and stretches them upwards, and his rotation, and when it retires before the light. So, when the lights of the holy vault shine out, talking about the firmament there, when they retire to the abode of glory, at the entry of the constellation or the stars in the days of the heads of the months, this doesn't say new moon, together with their rotations during their stations. So this is speaking about those Enoch chapter 82, the 4 leaders of the thousands of the stars that come in at these 4 heads of months. So together with their rotations during their stations, renewing each other, it is a great day for the Holy of Holies, Why? Because that's the spring Tekufa shining as the sun is rising due east, marking day 4 of creation week. That's when the Holy of Holies is going to shine bright. You know, Ezekiel 43. When that straight path of light shining right into the temple and lighting it up. It's a great day for the Holy of Holies and an omen, blank. So blank means vacate, vacat, or missing text, a large amount of missing text. So of the opening of his everlasting mercies, for the beginnings of the constellations in every future age. And then at the commencement of the months in their constellations, and of the holy days in their sequence, as a reminder in their constellations. So look at that, talking about the beginning of the months in the constellations. It's exactly what Sister Marissa had found. And it's also referring to these leaders of the thousands described in Enoch chapter 82. Talking about the holy days, the set apart days, the festivals, and the Sabbaths as a reminder in their constellations. So Sister Marissa found that as well with the barley star rising the day of Passover. With the offering of the lips I shall bless you, in accordance with the decree recorded forever. At the commencement of the years, and in the gyrations of their constellations, when the decree of their disposition is carried out, on the prescribed day, one after another, the constellation of the harvest up to summer, the constellation of seed time up to the constellation of the grass, the constellation of the years up to their 7-year periods. So speaking about the Jubilees, at the commencement of the 7-year periods up to the moment decided for deliverance, and in all my existence it shall be a precept engraved on my tongue, like fruit of eulogy, in the portion of my lips. I will sing with knowledge, and for the glory of Elohim shall all my music be the playing of my harp for his holy order, and the whistle of my lips. I shall tune to its correct measure. At the onset of day and night, I shall enter the covenant of Elohim, and when evening and morning depart, I shall repeat his precepts. Look at that, showing the starting of the day at morning. I shall repeat his precepts, and while they last, I shall set them as my limit, with no backtracking. His judgment reproaches me in conformity with my delights. They are before my eyes like graven laws, my sins. But to Elohim I shall say, my justice, and to the Most High, foundation of my well-being, the source of knowing. The spring of holiness, the peak of glory, all-powerful one of eternal majesty. I shall choose what he teaches me. I shall be pleased in how he might judge me. When I start to stretch out my hands and my feet, I shall bless his name. When I start to go out and to come in, and to sit and to stand up, and lying down in my bed, I shall extol him. I shall bless him with the offering that issues from my lips, and before stretching out my hand to get the fat on the tasty fruit of the earth. And at the onset of fright and dismay, and in the place of distress and grief, I shall bless him for his great marvels, and shall meditate on his power, and shall rely on his compassion the whole day. I realize that in his hand lies the judgment of every living thing, and all his deeds are truth. When distress is unleashed, I shall praise him, just as I shall sing to him for his deliverance. I shall not repay anyone with an evil reward. With goodness I shall pursue the man, for to Elohim belongs the judgment of every living being, and it is he who pays man his wages. I shall have no enthusiasm for the wicked spirit, and my soul shall not crave wealth by violence. I shall not be involved at all in any dispute of the men of the pit until the day of vengeance, so the day of judgment. However, I shall not remove my anger from wicked men, nor shall I be appeased until he carries out his judgment on the day of judgment, just like it said. I shall not sustain angry resentment from someone who converts from transgression, but I shall have no mercy for all those who deviate from the path. I shall not comfort the oppressed until their path is perfect. I shall not retain Belial within my heart. From my mouth no vulgarity shall be heard, or wicked deceptions. Sophistries or lies shall not be found on my lips. The fruit of holiness will be on my tongue. Profanity shall not be found on it. With hymns I shall open my mouth, and my tongue will ever number the just acts of Elohim and the treachery of men, until their transgression is complete. I shall remove from my lips worthless words, unclean things, and plotting from the knowledge of my heart. With wise counsel I shall hide, I shall tell of knowledge, and with discretion of knowledge I shall enclose him with a solid fence to maintain faithfulness and staunch judgment with the justice of Elohim. I shall share out the regulation with the court of the ages. We got some missing words here. And then justice and compassion. Justice and compassionate love with the oppressed, and to strengthen the hands of the blank. So this is column, what is this, 11? Understanding of those with a stray spirit, in order to instruct the teaching of those who complain, to reply with meekness to the haughty of spirit, and with a repentant spirit to the men of the stick, those who point the finger and speak evil, and are keen on riches. As for me, in Elohim is my judgment. In his hand is the in his hand is the perfection of my path, with uprightness of my heart. And with his just acts, he cancels my sin. For from the source of his knowledge he has disclosed his light, and my eyes have observed his wonders, the light of my heart, the mystery of the future. And the present, and of the present, and of what is for always. There's a support for my right hand. Look at that. And the path of my steps goes over firm rock. It does not waver before anything. For the truth of Elohim is the rock of my steps, and his might the support of my right hand. From the spring of his justice is my judgment, and from the wonderful mystery is the light in my heart. My eyes have observed what always is. Wisdom that has been hidden from mankind, knowledge and understanding, hidden from the sons of man, fount of justice and well of strength, and the spring of glory, hidden from the assembly of flesh. To those who Elohim has selected, he has given them as everlasting possession, until they inherit them in the lot of the holy ones. He unites their assembly to the sons of the heavens, in order to form the council of the community and a foundation of the building of holiness, to be an everlasting plantation throughout all future ages. However, I belong to evil humankind, to the assembly of wicked flesh. My failings, my transgressions, my sins, and blank, with the depravities of my heart, belong to the assembly of worms, and those who walk in darkness. For to man does not belong his path, nor to a human being the steadying of a step, since judgment belongs to Elohim, and from his hand is the perfection of the path. By his knowledge, everything shall come into being, and all that does exist he establishes with his calculations, and nothing is done outside of him. As for me, if I stumble, the mercies of Elohim shall be my salvation always. And if I fall in the sin of the flesh, in the justice of Elohim, which endures eternally, shall my judgment be, if my grief commences. He will free my soul from the pit, and make my steps steady on the path. He will draw me near in his mercies, and by kindnesses set in motion my judgment. He will judge me in the justice of his truth and his plentiful goodness, always atone for all my sins. In his justice he will cleanse me from the uncleanliness of the human being, and from sin and from the sons of men, so that I can extol Elohim for his justice, and the highest for his majesty. Blessed be you, my Elohim, who opens the heart of your servant to knowledge. Establish all his deeds in justice, and raise up the son of your handmaid to be everlastingly in your presence, as you have cared for the selected ones of humankind. For beyond you there is no perfect path, and without your will nothing comes to be. You have taught all knowledge, and all that exists is so by your will. Beyond you there is no one to oppose your counsel, to understand one of your holy thoughts, to gaze into the abyss of your mysteries, and to fathom all your marvels, or the strength of your might. Who can tolerate your glory? What indeed is man among all your marvelous deeds? As what shall one born of woman be considered in your presence? Shaped from dust, he has been. Maggots' food shall be his dwelling. He is a spat saliva, molded clay, and for dust his longing. What will the clay reply? And the one shaped by hand, and what advice will he be able to understand? Interesting that last bit is kind of reminding me of when Messiah, he spat in the clay and he healed the blind man's eyes. Interesting stuff. So let's see what we got. So yeah, I think we'll get into all this next time, because this is a whole, it's 4QS, which is still the rule of community, but it's different fragments here, as we can see. I think we'll get into all this next time. So, no, interesting stuff. Let me just bookmark it, just in case. And again, this can be found on the link there. Not only in the this group here that we're in, but in our other group as well, there's a whole section in there for the Dead Sea Scrolls. And let me just copy and paste it here. So in case you are not in our other group there, which we have to keep, PDFs and links and sources and all kinds of stuff. Feel free to join it. We have a lot of things to research in there. But yeah, no, the interesting. It just reminded me there at the end of, Messiah healing the blind man by spitting in the clay and molding it into his eyes. And if you notice, it has a lot of the same language as, really all of scriptures, but it's closely related to New Testament and Paul's writings, the same language, Belial, things like that. Really fascinating. So yeah, does anybody else have any questions, or did anything stick out to any of you that you noticed there? What about you, Katrina? You got anything to add? I know you're kind of busy at the moment, but
I was Quentin's drumming on the drums here. It's pretty loud. Anything to add? I missed a little chunk of that one. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it again.
yeah, no worries.
No, but is Lachlan or whatever on? What's how do you pronounce his name? Lachlan. Sarah, are you on?
Yeah, I'm on. I haven't
Did
seen him.
he say that he was gonna come
Well,
today?
he wanted to, but it's the middle of the night for the Australians. I see Jermaine is on here. He thought he might come on around 5 a.m. their time, which would be, I think, 3, but I haven't seen him.
Oh, here, maybe I'll send him a text.
Who are you telling?
Hold on a second.
What time is it there for you, Jermaine? Is it about 6:30 in the morning? Yeah, I'd like to. If we could get him on, we could start the calendar. I'd love that.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, let's give him a little nudge there.
Okay, I sent him a text. Does anybody else have any questions on the calendar? Sorry if you could hear my son. He's really loud.
Yeah, no worries. And Shabbat Shalom, Angel. Glad you can make it. Oh, interesting. So you've met that brother?
Hey, Angel, you see me on there? You said you never saw me on the chat before. How many names do you have, Angel? You shouldn't confuse us.
Yeah, so several names. Yosef.
All right, who?
Everybody,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
That gentleman's name is Overseer Dave Mode. He's one of the most knowledgeable and intelligent men I've ever met when it comes to scripture and the history of the Hebrews and the language itself.
Yeah, awesome. No, we were watching his video because he's speaking about the Temple of Onias there and some of the history about it. So, no, it's good to know. Awesome. Well, you sent him the calendar too? Awesome. Praise Yah. Yeah, maybe I can probably play our calendar video here, and then, if we have any questions, we can go over it. Let me see if I can, yeah, let me pull it up.
All right, who's gonna go over the calendar? Give Jeremy a break, and who's gonna go through it?
Yeah, let's do that. I was just
Huh?
gonna play. I was just gonna play the video, but yeah, if you want to go over it or something.
All right, who's new? Who's new to the calendar? Who wants to kind of go one-on-one with me? Who really doesn't have a good, firm foundation? What's going on? Why are you guys having the Sabbath on a Sunday? Who wants to know all that? Anybody here? Kind of walk you through, question by question. It's so much easier, like on a personal basis.
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand that there, Angel. Being baptized into Messiah, we become kings or queens through the blood and the heirs of everything. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely not many people who fully understand that. For Katrina, did you want to go over the calendar, or do you have your visual to go over?
I do. I'm gonna be in transit though now. It's in the
No.
car. We're at the park. We're at
Wait, eat it now? No.
we're at the park now.
Well, I can just I can get my video up and play it.
I want it to be a little bit more interactive than just playing a video. I want, let's talk. You know,
Go right,
talk it through.
go right ahead if you want to talk about it. Please feel free to give me a break because I'm hungry. I'm about to eat. I got stuff to do too. That's why I was wanting to play a video versus
Yeah,
talk
you
about
played
it.
a video this whole time though. Come on. So, all right. So, who wants to walk it through with me? Where is everybody at? Who's new to this? Who has no idea? Who wants to talk about it? Anybody?
Yeah. So Joshua, that's how we found the calendar, was by fasting and praying. And then all the witnesses were the Dead Sea Scrolls, Enoch, Jubilees, the witnesses and the stars. And we continue to this day to find more and more confirmation.
All right. I think I made it to my car now. Let's see, Faith. Or Joshua. Where did you find us from? TikTok?
Or we actually met you. Oh, we actually met you, Katrina, at the Sukkot gathering in North Georgia last year. We came for a day. We dropped off a lot of things for the people in North Carolina. So yeah. And so for us, or at least for me, I've been looking at this since maybe 2020 with COVID. My parents are lunar Sabbath keepers for the past 10 years. And when we had to move in with them for different reasons, to keep the peace, we had to do Sabbath according to them, according to the lunar. And so we got to see it from that perspective of doing it and a lot of issues with that. But when I go back with Creation Week, we're able to see it doesn't move. It's completely foundational. Because if it would move, all of creation then would be out of sync. It can't be something that's changed monthly at least. But when you're looking at it on its own, without the Gregorian, it actually never changes the date. It's completely etched. It's our foundation. And so you don't want a shifting foundation. And so I don't have Facebook. Joshua has Facebook. And he's reaching out. I think we're there for answering more questions or having questions, and you forward him some of the stuff that Miss Livy was sharing, and so was dissecting that, listening to that, because I could see a lot of it. I did not know about, I think, day 0, but I can see that. I think that's something Josh might have a question about, is more so day 0, but for us, I could see it. I didn't, for something more specifically, not knowing about day 0, and I would have thought that for the equinox, that was your day 1, but getting more how do we do the divider day, and comparing it to the menorah, comparing it when the whole set apart place would be illuminated, that it was actually this actually makes perfect sense. And then how do you find your months? Those are things that I could not figure out on my own in my studies, that I can never make the connections to. But I was seeking this for some years now, and honestly, I thought kind of the only person, because everyone is either lunar or Saturday, or they just fall out of the way. But I've been seeking this for some years now, and I'm so thankful, extremely thankful that clarity has been there. And now I'm learning what Jeremy went over today. I never considered that, but when you're looking at that temple and Yahusha went back to Mizraim, he did come back with a wealth of knowledge and the people were astonished. But when you're just reading over it, I've never even considered that. So yeah, there's a lot of other things that I'm learning that, that I didn't know before.
Awesome. All praise to the Most High.
Oh, that's so cool. So we met at Hebrew Fest?
It was with the Sukkot, North
Oh, it was
Georgia,
so...
with Sterling. Yeah. We were out
Oh my
there for a
gosh!
day. I came with my parents, my husband. We have 6 kids. We came out there. We dropped a lot of stuff off for the people for North Carolina. But yeah,
Oh my
because
gosh, I
we're from
remember
Florida.
now. Yes, I remember now. Oh, awesome. Yeah, they were on the Zadok calendar. I'm not sure where Sterling is today on this, if he's gotten this or not. I know that he's been hanging around Sean Handler a lot. And Sean Handler understands this calendar this way now. What are
Wow,
you doing?
that's
Saving a tree.
incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah, so I know they're hanging out a lot. I see even Sean posting some of his videos at his place. So I thought that was really awesome. But yeah, I'm so glad you're here. Oh my goodness. And what's the question on the divider day that you have?
So
Or your
I think,
husband?
well, he might, because we have 6 kids, not a lot of background noise. I'm in the pantry. Because I think for finding, hold on. Let me let him ask it because I don't want to
Okay.
butcher it. So that, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
And all praise to the Most High. Truly a blessing. Truly a blessing to be able to come together with everybody as well.
Come in. Wait, honey.
Shalom.
Hey, Shalom.
Hey, Shalom.
How's everybody?
Oh my goodness. Good. How are you? Nice to see you again.
Everything's good. How about my
So,
question?
oh yeah. I want to hear it.
All right. Was it the Genesis and beginning that's an account for the one divided day or the divided day?
Genesis 1-2. Yeah.
And then the other scripture is in Job.
Yep.
I'm not sure if it was in Job. Okay.
Yep. Job, I think there's 2 places in Job. Right, Jeremy? Which? Job 3 and... Or are they both in 3?
Well, all of chapter 3 and then somewhere Job 31, if I remember right.
Did Moshe write the book of Job? Or was it?
No,
I'm not sure.
So some say it was written before Moses.
Mm-hmm.
And others say, Job is actually Jobab in the book of Genesis. So it's hard to pinpoint when it was written, but he does speak about it in Job chapter 3. Also, Jeremiah speaks about the same with his birthday. I forget where that's at because I just recently heard that.
Okay.
And let me look up. I'm trying to find the verse here. 1 second. Oh, I see why I'm in the wrong section. Hold on. So yeah, Job, specifically 3 verse 6. And then there's another one in Job somewhere. Let me try to find it. So Job 38, 4 through 5 is actually speaking about, the line or the straight line that you will be able to track that happens on the equinox.
Okay. There's a scripture in Zechariah 14:7. It describes, because I Googled it, there's a day known to Yahuah without day or night. I don't know if that could possibly be another witness. But it's interesting because we don't know the day or hour, but it could be the divided day wherein he sends Yahusha down. Just another thought,
Yeah, it will be.
That would be so cool. The day or hour nobody knows yet. And they, it's so funny you say that because I think I mentioned that to Jeremy before. It's like the day or hour no one knows. Right, Jeremy? Did I say something like that? I was just like, oh, nobody wants to get this day. Like, even Erin Ryan, she doesn't, she sees it, but she doesn't at the same time. She doesn't want to admit to it. And it seriously is the day or hour nobody knows. Wow.
Like time would stop, exist because
Right on Olive Street.
So does make little sense.
Yeah. Wow.
Very possible.
Definitely a good question. Something to look into more.
That one day is what sets the year. We're going to Poppy's house. That one day is just a reset. So it's the day 365. It's right before 364.
Take the second left onto Harrison Avenue.
And right after 364. Or I'm sorry, right before. I can't even think right now. We were at the park and it was so hot. Holding that place so that the first and the last day don't merge, right? It just divides. It's so perfect.
It could also mean when it comes, that's the start of the beginning of the new establishment.
Continue on Harrison Avenue for half a mile.
That could be the start of a new day, a new calendar, and everything be established according to the heaven scroll.
Hey, was ever driving? Can you put your mute on?
Yeah, Sarah, sorry. That's me. It's really hard to talk and drive at the same time. I'm really trying here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to talk and drive. Yeah, it's me.
We can hear your GPS.
I understand, but I also don't want to die.
No, but wow. It would make sense because that was the beginning and it will be the end. So that will be the new beginning. I didn't think of it like that. Wow. Because, when in the new kingdom, when heaven and earth is remade, it would probably start on, the beginning of the year, like everything else. And, wow. I'm thinking about that, yeah. Sorry. What do you think, Katrina?
I love it.
That's an off
Yeah, I
topic.
think that's the pillar known as Rosh Hashanah.
Wait, what's that again?
I said, I believe that is the pillar that is known as Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, could be. Definitely interesting.
Well, defined, it would be head of the new year.
Yeah.
And then Rosh HaChodesh would be head of the months, would be the other pillar.
Yeah, precisely. How are we keeping the Feast of New Wine? Ken, do you have an answer for that? You're usually pretty good with those. Yeah, stick around. We've definitely had a lot of confirmations. We have all of our fellowships in our second group in the video section. Let me get the link here for you. So yeah, here in our second group that we made is specifically to basically to organize all the information and sources and links. But in there, you'll find my YouTube channel as well. And we cover a lot of this information. Like, we've already discussed a lot of it. Marissa's witnesses in the stars that she found, her video. I think that's pretty important because it's literally the witness in the stars. And it fits this exact method.
Okay, I have a question actually.
Yeah.
So I just saw Angel post a question about, she saw someone else make a comment. I think it was Mr. Ken about new wine. Okay, I'm familiar with that in the scripture, but there's a specific day for this. I'm trying to understand where that, or do you have like a source or something that I can like look into this? I'm really familiar that you have like a daily and for specific offerings, but it's a festival day.
Yeah, it's a festival day. So it's in Nehemiah. Hold on one second, let me get it here.
I have a couple videos that I could tag in the chat about new wine and how other people observe it. I definitely have to freshen up to see what it all entails again.
Yeah, it's Nehemiah 10:39. And it speaks about it in the Dead Sea Scrolls as well. It's talking about bringing their contributions of grain, new wine, olive oil. Actually, that whole Nehemiah 10 is going to go over the new wine and the wood offerings as well. And because the scribes and the Pharisees, they remove these festivals because they don't fit the moon calendar, they also remove the 4 head of month festivals, the Noah days that we read about in Jubilees chapter 6. They removed those and they renamed them as new moon festivals to hide the fact of these 4 seasonal Noah days that are also included in the festivals. Ken usually has a lot of scriptures for these festivals. Oh, there he is. There.
Ken, hook it up.
Yeah, it says, so Ken said, drink young wine or freshly crushed grapes, bread, and have joy. The new wine would be taken in by the temple priests, which then would become holy wine sacrifices and offerings. So picnic, celebrate holy convocation. Wine is life, obedience. Bread is humility and service. Wine is also doctrine for living. Yeah, and I would add, that's also why Messiah drinks the wine. He says, "This is my blood." Not saying, drink his blood, but his wine is a representation of his blood that is going to cover our sins as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at more into this. In chapter 10, does it tell you what month or what day that we are to observe this?
In the Dead Sea Scrolls, it does actually.
Okay.
Hold on, let me get the. I have a picture of. Where is it here? So wait, it's month 4 still, isn't it? Oh no, where is it? Oh, we're about to go into month 5. So it's in the 5th month here. And then it's going to be right there in a scroll 4Q324D. I have Nehemiah 10:39 in there as well. But really, all of Nehemiah 10 talks a lot about the new wine and the wood offering, the new oil, new wine, and wood offering.
Hey, Ken, mute your mic and join in.
With terrible audio.
He has terrible audio?
Yeah. So he said there are 4 first fruit celebrations, all separated by a count of 7 Sabbaths, counting the Omer. The next day after that Sabbath would be first fruits, all within the season of the heat. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the confirmations are truly what got us. I was fasting, praying, asking the Father to please show me these things.
I was
That,
just always. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, finish with that. I'm sorry.
Oh, so I went into this to originally prove it wrong, and ended up getting confirmation after confirmation that it's right. So I was like, gonna have to change that. So yeah, ever since, we've been coming together, and like I mentioned before, every single week we just have more and more confirmations that we found coming together as a group. Go ahead.
I was really, like, I love Alan Pizarek and everything, but, like, when he would try to explain the start date and the whole intercalation stuff like that, and moving, the head of the day to wherever he wanted it to go, like, I was just so confused. And I remember, like, watching his videos so many times and trying to understand how it was all going to play out, trying to make sense of it all. And it's just like, no. Oh my goodness. This makes absolutely no sense. So when Davidson said, or Ed, I saw a video, and he's like, oh yeah, we just don't move the day. When the equinox comes in, it's boom, that's day 4 of the week. And that just, I was so excited when I heard him say that, because it's so much more, like, people just want to overcomplicate things, and this just makes things so easy. And it sucks because, like, with the Jackson Snyder Expo, every single one of those people, their error was that they moved the start date to a Wednesday, every single one. And it's like, they had all these fancy ways of intercalating, but they just made it so much more complicated than it needed to be. So that's what did it for me. Like, now, like, then I could finally see, wow, it finally hit. And then everything, yeah, all the confirmations just started coming in. And then other people started to get it. I'm like, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not the only crazy one that wants to do it right. Ugh, so beautiful. It's just a great picture. And then when Jeremy found the equinox day, that was just like, wow. That just made day 4 make so much sense. Boom, you have your day 4, and then done. Like, all the rest of the year is going to line up beautifully. Easy. And, we're called to number our days, count our days, not sight moons. So I'm just so thankful.
Yeah, all praise to the most high. And our sister Libby, she's like 78, and she found this calendar when she was like in her 20s. So she's been observing the same calendar for like 50 years.
23.
Yeah, really amazing. And her testimony is awesome. She usually joins us for our fellowships. We should probably call her and see how she's doing. It's been a couple weeks since she's joined. But yeah, she learned this calendar, 50 years ago. She's been following it ever since. And when she learned of, what we had found in the Dead Sea Scrolls and are doing the same exact method, she was like overjoyed. because she didn't realize these things were in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And it's because of the author's insertions, they hide it.
And how amazing, yeah, how amazing 4Q324D is. How amazing is that scroll? It just lays it out so there's no guesswork. It's like, here's the first Sabbath. You know what I mean? On this day, it just lays it out perfectly. Yeah, such confirmation. The Dead Sea Scrolls, the authors really helped us here in these last days. So perfect.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, all of us coming together. I know Jermaine and her husband been following it quite a while as well, the same calendar. So yeah, all praise to the Most High. Just because we come together and we try to work together as a group, just figure out these things, because where two or more are gathered, that's where he will dwell and he will be. Especially if we're all just searching for truth, Yeah, where is Sister Jermaine? Milk.
So can I ask the question that I didn't want to take away from the discussion earlier? Kind of in regards to the priesthood, but it's more just speculation, and just trying to see, because I've gone through a lot of the extra books. I have not gone through the fragments of the scrolls. I started and I did not finish, kept having a lot of babies. But yeah, I had a question, if now is not a good time, no worries.
Oh no, please.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So we were reading in the Midbar Numbers today, and I understand for the order of brothers, the firstborn, but what happened to Moshe's sons? It's really, when you're seeing the counts of all the men, and it's talking about all the houses, they're never listed. It's besides, when Sephora cut off their foreskins, and where they just, did they, I'm not trying to say they died from that, but you never see anything of them afterwards. And I would definitely think that there would be some significance because of their dad, because of Moses, but just of also being a Levite, being a part of the order, but you never see them unless I'm wrong.
Huh, no, that's a good question. I never thought about that. Yeah, what? Because they don't mention them a whole lot in scriptures, really.
Right. It's so when they were taking the census and it was going down all of the tribes, it's Aharon, and then where's Moses' sons? Where's that lineage? It doesn't say they died, but it also doesn't say that they were counted in anything, which was honestly a bit strange.
That is actually. Does anybody have a answer or know anything about that? That's a good question.
There are those, I just came across it, and there are those who indicate that because of all the and trying to disrespect for Zipporah, calling her an Egyptian wife and all this sort of things, that he sent his sons and his wife to be with their grandfather, with Jethro. It just wasn't a safe place for them to be. I thought that was... But anyway, like I said, I just came...
Is it me or is it Is Ellie breaking up pretty bad?
Yeah, Ellie, I can't hear you that well.
So you were saying he sent him off to Zipporah? Ellie might have a bad connection.
It wasn't a safe place for them, and so he
And now we can hear
really
you.
there. Okay.
Now we could. We couldn't hear you for a little bit. We might have missed a chunk.
Oh, okay. I was just reading today that that Moses sent his family home with Jethro. Remember, he came to visit them in Exodus 18 and helped them set up the Sanhedrin, if you want to call it that. And there was the jealousy, and Aaron and Miriam were speaking against him and all that. And they tried to stone him. Just sent them away for safety.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. Yep.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I remember with Lot, when he, with the whole stealing the idols and coming after Yaakov, that he was saying that, like, these are my children. And it's kind of like, wait, no, but I guess that's more of the Hebraic mindset because Israel also tells that to Ephraim and Manasseh, like they're mine. So that does make a lot of sense that he could have possibly took them back with them.
Oh, you mean Laban?
Yeah, I said Lot. I said Lot. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. My brain was trying to go through the Lot story and it just didn't fit.
Yeah, his sons were dead. So yeah, not Lot, but Laban. Uh-huh.
Yeah, interesting. Good stuff, for sure.
Hey,
Okay.
Talitha, did you say that you wanted to kind of go over the calendar a little bit, make sure it's good and solid for you? Is there any questions that you might have to make sure that we could get you all the scripture and the visuals, if you ever saw the visual?
You should just do your visual when you get a chance there, Katrina. I know you're driving at the moment, but whenever.
Yeah, no, I'm home. I'm home.
I think she's typing. Or Rebecca's typing. And yeah, before we do the visual, let me stop this recording because we got like a minute left of it. Then I'll start a new one so that we don't have to we don't have an interruption during your visual there. So give me just one moment and then we'll start the recording again.